Breachlock is a global leader in continuous attack surface discovery and penetration testing. Since Breachlock was founded, they are adding over 50 new customers every month. They have discovered over 1 million reported vulnerabilities and performed more than 20,000 pen testing engagements, including pen tests for over 15,000 web applications, 8,000 mobile apps, more than 100,000 APIs, over 10,000 cloud security audits, and over 200,000 network endpoints. They test your entire attack surface and help you mitigate your next cyber breach before it occurs. Know your risk. Contact Breachlock today. Visit securityweekly.com/breachlock.
On Business Security Weekly, each week we address the challenges facing CISOs through our guest interviews, including former and active CISOs. Our news segment is focused on leadership and communications to better help security leaders translate and communicate security risks into business risks. Jason Albuquerque, Ben Carr, Tyler Robinson, and others add their expertise to the conversation. I'm Matt Alderman, and I hope you search for Business Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher and subscribe to download our latest content.
Welcome back, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Quick announcement before we get started. We're always looking for great guests for all of our Security Weekly shows. Submit your suggestions by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. Another great way, if you want to get on this show, is you have a conversation with me. And you can do that on Twitter DMs or LinkedIn or find me on Discord or however you want to find me. If you can find me and we have a chat, and you've got great things to contribute to the community, we'll have you on the show. That's really the requirement. I think I nailed that, right? In one sentence. Yeah. If you've got great things to share with the security community, we want you on the show.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
And others of us that are out there might be looking out for you and be willing to pass your name on to Paul, because
that is also another
authority.
Yes. Right. Yes. Also, Bill Swearingen has joined us.
Oh, we have some other. I had a couple of real quick announcements.
What's up, Bill?
Bill?
Hey, guys! I survived. I'm back from Vegas, ready to do this.
And you got your phone, which is good.
I got the phone. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Larry, you had announcements.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to release, but I'm assuming it's going to be relatively soon. I will be on the Tech Done Different podcast with Mr. Ted Harrington. We did a recording live at DEF CON, talked about software supply chain and some government regulations and how maybe they might actually be helping secure some of our connected systems.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Be fun.
Well, if that's the kind of announcements we're doing.
If that's another, let's just go right around. Jeff, you can go next.
Yeah. I was just on a podcast that was dropped, and gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it, but I'm on a lot of podcasts. I got backdoored into speaking at
Hey, it's a family show.
Family show. Player to be named later. I'll be speaking at the PCI community meeting in September. Of course, I will be speaking at GurCon. And Paul, I understand you're going to be working the booth at GurCon.
I will be a booth babe at GurCon. It's a great call for our listeners.
I will come.
The goal is for me to do something really cool.
Wear
lampshades. How about
lampshades? Lampshades.
Yeah.
You know what? Maybe I'll IoT enable a lampshade just for you.
Hack with a lampshade on your head. There's our new logo. I'm also keynoting B-Sides Edmonton right before I go to GurCon. If anybody happens to live up in Calgary or Edmonton, Alberta, that's Canada, and it shouldn't be snowing yet. It's overseas in Canada.
It's not overseas.
It's a joke, Josh. It's a
joke, Josh.
I know.
I will be. Are you done, Jeff? Sorry.
I think so.
Can I
will be on some upcoming podcasts. Hackers on the Rocks is a new podcast that was started that I will be on, as well as All Quiet on the Second Front. I will be in a webinar tomorrow from the ITGRC forum. If you check Twitter or X, you'll see that there. And I think that's it for right now. I got
one more.
Go ahead. I thought you were done. I was doing mine, and then
I remembered. Well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Philip Wiley. I was on his show. It just dropped yesterday, I think. So the Philip Wiley Show podcast. Nice. I'm on that. Go ahead, Paul.
I'll be speaking at the Cyber Security Marketing Conference in December in Philadelphia on
marketing.
Yeah,
You're inviting me to that, right?
Yeah, vulnerability. I just got finalized. Vulnerability disclosure and marketing folks, and how you deal. Like, if you're the marketing person, you have security research, and your researchers are disclosing stuff, and inevitably, a lot of the time, shit goes sideways. How do you deal with that? And so,
Maybe I'll make it up there, Paul, because I got a present for you.
yeah, save the NVD. Nice.
Oh,
That's not till December though.
It's right here, Jeff.
I'll save
right
it
here.
for you.
Jeff, right here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nice.
All right, did you get one for Paul? I did.
Well, technically, it's for the studio.
I think Larry said he was gonna
Okay, right.
put up in the studio.
I got your own personal, Paul. You
So
can
Paul,
put it under
seriously,
your
I want to
pillow.
go to that cybersecurity marketing conference. So let
Yes.
me know, all right?
Just got confirmed. So
Me too.
I'm
I wanna go
excited.
too.
Congrats.
I'm excited. Well, now you guys are
I've
going to
got
be
one.
there. That's even better. It's awesome.
So B-Sides Delaware is coming back this year in person, November 8th and 9th. And we're going to be at UDEL down in Newark.
Nice.
We got an entire high-tech building that's brand new, and we get to play and do lots of fun stuff.
So it's B-Sides Delaware in Newark, Delaware, not New Jersey.
Yeah,
right?
it's Newark, Delaware, not Newark, New Jersey.
Newark. Okay. Maybe
I thought those were the same place. I'm from Kansas.
I thought they were too, Bill. And
Moscow,
Delaware is
Kansas?
probably like, how far of a drive is that from Rhode Island to get to Newark, Delaware?
A little bit further than Philly.
6 hours, 5
Okay.
hours, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'll be flying. That's fine.
You'll fly.
Yeah.
Fly to Baltimore. We can drive up together.
Okay.
That's actually
You're
a good
on.
idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys want to know a hot tip on how you can tell if anybody is from the NSA? Like, do you know that tip? You ask them where they're from, and they say Maryland, and they make sure to clarify, I'm from Maryland, NSA.
Wow.
Jeff, where are you from?
Maryland.
See? See?
Yeah.
See? It totally
Annapolis
works.
Junction.
Yeah.
It tracks.
Jeff, where do you work? The DoD.
Maryland.
The DoD.
Should we? Let's start with the DEF CON badge,
Let's do it.
because this went. I'm kind of saddened, like how sideways this went.
Well, I
because-
mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if it went sideways, but the article
Listen,
that Jeff linked to,
it went sideways.
it went sideways.
It went sideways.
There's
Come
a
on.
lot. There's a
went
lot
I
of
was excited.
speculation.
The
and-
RP 2350. I was reading about that because it was announced not that long ago, and then there was articles, and I was reading through the specs, and I don't pretend to know, like from a practical standpoint, what the benefits are between the 2040 and the 2350.
50.
I've read it, and I'm like, okay, it's smaller chip, more stuff on it, that kind of thing.
I mean, it's a great idea to get it out there in the DEF CON badge. That was smart.
And then so then I was like, oh, like simultaneously I was like, oh, I'm like, the DEF CON badge, I'm like, that looks awesome. I'm like, it has the new chip. I'm like, this is exciting. I like
Dude,
the
it's
chips.
fucking awesome. It's fucking awesome.
It was a great. It's a
And
great
then,
badge.
but then I started reading about all the controversy, and I'm like, Jeff's got a DEF CON badge. He's holding it up.
I'm holding it up.
Bill's got one.
Close up.
I got
Close
two.
up.
There's one behind me, and then also I got this one, the community one.
There you
I've
go.
got the goon one up there, and then the community right there.
I've got the human.
And what did you have to do to get the community one?
Be part of the community, homeboy.
Well, I am
He had
part
to
of the
fuck
community.
So he
entire
stole
community.
Right.
That means he
stole it when
stole
they
it.
weren't
Yes, that
looking.
is Bill speak for I stole it.
Or he lied, cheated, and stole as well. Yeah, lied.
Cheated is probably the right way. Yeah.
Nice.
I mean,
Nice.
I put it briefly in my notes. I walked outside in front of the convention center, and there was this big, huge crowd of people gathered around this one person talking. And I'm like, what the heck's going on there? And it turns out it was the guy that had just been kicked out, because I saw.
That was Dimitri.gr is the
Yeah.
Yep.
the guy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's some back and forth about whether he was actually kicked out. Like they said
He was
that-
the one that was escorted off stage. I saw
He
that
was
video.
escorted off stage.
And from what I heard, I wasn't there, but from what I heard, that he wasn't thrown out. He told
Dude, you need to leave.
he told everyone that he was asked to leave, and he said, no, you'll have to remove me.
Right. And it was kind of like a show. Like,
sure.
everybody understood that this was happening. It was kind of a joke. And then the video that got posted to Twitter, it made it look like that dude was like drug off stage. And Larry, I wasn't there either, but from what I understand, it was more of a joke at that point. But
Yep. And there's lots of
was
accusations going back and
ceremonial.
forth.
Yeah, this is a situation like I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't. I mean, it's between them, right? Like but it's like any people doing business together. Sometimes there's disagreements, and like
Sure.
they just got to work it out. I'm not taking sides. I don't
Nope.
pretend to know what happened.
I'll take
I
sides.
I don't know if I don't know who's in the wrong, who's in the right, but hopefully they can work it out.
Yep.
That's my stance. Bill,
Yeah.
if you want to take sides,
Yeah, I do. So
I'm not going to suppress your freedom of speech.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I won't share my Bitcoin wallet. so, like as somebody who's put on cons and done all those things, I was a little surprised when I started hearing all the rumblings about, and then saw the video of the dude being ripped off stage and all of those kind of things. And so I certainly believe that this is one of those situations where there is three real stories, right? I think both sides
Right.
are telling the truth, and then there's the truth, right? But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like in like my opinion, first of all, I got to tell you, the badge this year was fantastic. It's everything that I've,
Heck yeah.
like everything that really that I've ever wanted out of badge. It's approachable to hack, like, like put ROMs on. It's cool. Everything about it's great. And somebody had to make that, right? Somebody
Yep.
had to make that, right? Like,
Or more importantly, a team had to make
right,
that.
a team had to make that. I get that, but if you put a crypto wallet in as part of like the like proof of ours, then all of a sudden I don't like it anymore. Like that part rubbed me the wrong way, right? So
Wait, what happened? They put a crypto wallet inside it?
yeah, so when you did the
No, so it wasn't a wallet. It was just a
well,
Bitcoin address.
I'm sorry. Thank you. You're right. So the Bitcoin
Oh,
address,
yeah.
right?
Okay. I remember
And
reading that. Yes.
and so that was hidden code that if you did a certain sequence of buttons, it would show, it
Easter
would
egg.
say like getting an Easter egg that say, and it said, giving back, like
Giving back hidden stolen credit or
stolen
hidden
credit. Perfect. I'm fine with all of that. That's dope, right? But then you include a Bitcoin wallet. Oh, that's shady, man. That's shady. And now
Well-
and now they're trying to sell T-shirts, and they're trying to profit off of all this drama. And
Well, are they trying to profit, or are they just trying to recoup what they didn't get paid, according to
Fair.
reports?
And the
Fair.
question is, was it that they never really got paid? Because some of the reports I was hearing is that the company, and I can't remember the company's name, that
Entropic.
It's in my
Entropic,
article.
It's
yeah,
Entropic Engineering.
that was not engaged in the panel and was dropped because they put a work stoppage because they weren't meeting.
They went over budget.
They went
was
over
the-
budgets,
yeah.
but it was also reported that they said that they were going to basically discount all of their prices to come in under budget and basically take a loss on the project, and they still got work stoppaged type of
Yeah.
thing.
So I-
Yeah.
like-
so then
like,
they get
as-
into,
as-
like he
yeah,
said, she said,
as Bill says, there's three stories. There's
Yeah.
one from Dimitri, there's one from Entropic, and there's one from DEF CON, and there's probably 7 other stories in there. So
But wait,
That's
I want to
probably
ask
the
Bill.
truth
Bill
as
I want to
well.
ask Bill and others though. Why is it so cool? What was the features that
Well,
made it cool?
so first of all, like, it's been a long time thing. It's something that Joe Grant and I have talked about at like a long, back in the day. So I feel like the DEF CON badges for a long time have been just a little bit outside of the normal
The
hardware
approachable.
hacking.
Mhm.
Like, okay, so I want to make this badge do something, and it's just a little bit too outside. Like they're using
Wasn't
a
it
chip.
last year where it was a paper badge?
Yeah, but
That
let's
was
talk about
edgy.
let's talk about the electronic badges before. They use chips that nobody had used before, and,
Yep.
Yeah.
and,
Okay.
and all of these kind of things.
No experience,
No
implementation that
experience.
was
I've
hard.
been there. I've acquired hardware that's like really esoteric, and there's like one project, and I'm like, that's not what I want to
Yep.
do with it. And now I have to spend all this engineering time to make it do what I want to do. And I'm
So
like,
let me tell you what makes this year's badge just incredibly dope. It is running on Raspberry Pi hardware. It's running a Game Boy emulator, and
Game Boy
the
Color
badge
emulator.
and the badge itself, like the code running, is a Game Boy Color game. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It takes nothing to drop a Game Boy game on in there, and they run fantastic, right?
Yep. It's
And
bare,
so
bare,
awesome.
bare metal Game Boy Color emulator.
Well, if it's
Yeah.
anything like the 2040, you plug it in, it shows up as USB, and you
Yep.
drag and drop the
That's
firmware on it, and then you unplug it, and it's off to the races, right?
That's
You can do it
exactly
over-
how it is. Yep.
Yeah.
That's
except you can do this one over SD card as well because it's got
Okay.
SD
Oh,
card.
nice.
Yep.
I want to point out, by the way, that number one, kudos to Mar Williams for designing the case, and it is awesome.
It is. I
Okay.
love it. Have you taken it apart yet? Like that's
Yes.
the most magic part of the case. That thing is gorgeous. It's a beautiful execution. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is absolutely. I've only seen it.
I'm
from,
just
like,
going to be
and-
Vanna White for this
Yep.
whole
The
discussion.
part one of the things that I thought was amazing on some of the use case and the way it is that when it hangs on your lanyard and everybody else sees it, the screen is so that other people can read it, and it is in the shape of a cat,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mhm.
But when you pick it up, and so you pick it up, it turns so that now it is active for you to use, and the buttons are in the right orientation,
it's
so
a
you don't have to like turn
controller.
it around, and it's a
Yeah.
controller, and you don't have to turn it upside down and mess with it, and it's like
I just want to say Jeff is doing a
orientation.
great job of being Vanna White. While you guys are
Thank you.
describing this, he's
Yes.
doing an amazing job. Amazing job.
ooh,
So the dispute between Entropic and DEF CON was interesting to read all of the different responses. Effectively, they said they had about 70% of the work done, but hadn't been paid quite a lot of it before they were issued a work stoppage. It's when they put their invoice in. According to them, they put their invoice in and then got the work stoppage, and they discounted their invoice by over 25% just to come in under budget or at budget.
See, I don't give a
Again-
fuck about any of that.
Yeah, like that's he said, she said, kind of.
Exactly.
They gotta work it out. And-
another amazing thing that was amazing about this badge, they had them all there on day one, and you didn't have to get a paper badge and try to go and trade it in for an electronic badge because they were being shipped FedEx from China and dropped to somewhere where someone had to drive it 600 miles in their in a rented truck.
Yeah.
And they were there and they were complete. Now, granted, some bugs in the code. These things happen. Rev 1, right?
Sure.
Breaking story,
Oh,
GitHub.
Yeah, get
Is
up,
down?
down. Yep.
yep.
But we're
That-
talking about DEF CON.
That
Yeah.
could, that could impact the stories we might cover. But anyway,
So Jeff and Larry, what did you guys think of LVCC, the Las Vegas Convention Center? What did you guys think?
It was good and
second
bad.
Second year there.
First
Nope,
year.
First year.
Oh, it was the first
Yeah,
year.
because
Was
they-
there some stuff last year that was there or no?
No.
No,
No,
it was
no,
at the
no.
Caesars Convention Center.
Yes.
The Caesar
Totally
Forums,
different.
I think it is. Or
Totally
something like that.
different and new venue. This year.
Caesars Convention Center and Caesars Resorts as well. So it was not contained all to one space. If you wanted to go to other places,
Yeah, so I saw the pictures and it looked like a massive convention
it was a
center
massive.
space.
It was
It's-
massive space.
It is massive.
But I mean, like, how many people? So we always go through this, like DEF CON, how many people, right? It's well over
Well, so-
20,000. Over
Yeah, I-
20,000?
30 plus, because
30,000.
Entropic specifically said that it was a 30K plus badge order.
Okay.
Yep.
So,
So it
I
was
heard the numbers
30,000
were
people.
around 27 is what I heard that the
Yep.
that the
Let's call it
order was
27.
30.
Yep.
Yeah, but
Yep.
Who
you know,
wants to do the calculations?
Yep.
So I heard
So-
somewhere in that the order was like for the order of the badges was like 28,500, just shy of 29,000, and on Saturday, they allegedly had some badges left over that they were selling at a discounted price. That is my understanding. So,
Yeah.
so you're approaching the 28,000 range.
But venue, I'll weigh in. And
Yep.
I haven't been going to DEF CON since the very beginning. I only started going about 10 years ago when I went to work for Tenable. There were years that I'd come back from DEF CON and I'd hear about something that went on. I'm like, where was that? And they're like, oh, that was Planet Hollywood. And like, there was stuff in Planet Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and last year, new venue, but I went around last year and tried to hit all the villages and tried to at least
Yep.
say, okay, I saw everything. And I could do that again this year because it was
Yep.
all in one location. Granted, it was an immense facility, but I liked it because the walking from one place to the other was all indoors and air conditioned.
Yep.
Whereas in years past, you're like,
Mm.
no, what casino do I need to go to?
Yeah, do I need to
go
cross
to
the
this
street?
one, and how do I get there? And it's out in the 110-degree weather, and
Yeah.
I'm out in the masses. And then once I get there, where do I go? which is not to say they didn't have good signage, but I liked it from the perspective it was all in one location.
Yes,
and you
all
could
under
get to
all under one
everywhere
roof.
in air conditioning and relative ease. Although you definitely everybody got their steps in that, working.
Yeah,
And-
but I heard
but
people
it's not
talking
like
about.
it's not like the
Yeah.
years of old and all the.
But I think
I don't
for
have that as a
next
reference
year,
point.
because I'm already putting my plans. I want to go next year because I'm not skipping like I did this year. That people said, I learned a lot about how to get back and forth from the convention center.
That was a
there's multiple
cluster.
ways to do
a lot
it.
of that
Right?
was a cluster.
Yeah, you can Uber. There was trams, and people were kind of navigating it out.
Yep.
So I think
or,
when you
or
plan
in my
next year,
or in my case, I walked across the street.
yeah. So like where you stay and how you get there,
Mm.
people will have that sorted out from this
Mhm.
year. So talk to people who went this year if you're going to go in future years, and they'll have great tips. Like
There's a lot of shuttle buses. I heard a lot of great
Yeah.
tips about
Yeah.
exactly that.
right.
Yep. So I'm with Jeff. I love that we were all under the same roof, and it was way easier to run into your friends,
Nice.
and you could go
That's
from
the most important.
you could go
thing for me.
from one
Yep.
village to another village and not have to switch
Schlep.
hotels
Right,
and
right.
schlep and
How
I could
loud
literally
was it?
I could literally say that I saw everything.
I don't think it was loud at all.
The problem that I had, and coming from a little bit of a speaker-ish perspective on one of the creator stages, is that the only dividing thing that they had between individual tracks and stages and villages was pipe and drape.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
Did it go all the way to the ceiling, or
not all the time.
oh Jesus?
Well, it
So-
would go up 30 or 40 feet, but it was like a 60-foot ceiling.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, it looks
And-
massive.
And
All right, so
Josh,
now
it was
they
just
need to do silent disco.
it was just drape. Like you that was it. But silent disco wouldn't work for everything, Jeff, because there's
Say hi.
things going on in villages, and people in villages were giving talks, and
Bill has guests.
just all of that stuff. Like,
Do you guys have badges? Do you need badges to get into your house? Is that
Yeah,
okay?
pretty much, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
checking.
DARPA had this huge installation for the AI cyber challenge.
That was super cool.
That was super cool. Like, I can't believe DARPA paid for that. That's a lot of money.
No.
But they in this thing they had a park.
I mean, in all reality, we probably paid for
Yeah.
it.
Well, they had a park.
Yeah.
They had a park, and you could go into the park, and you could press a button, and it would launch virtual fireworks, and you'd hear like a whistle or bottle rocket. You could hear that through the whole goddamn
You
convention
could.
center.
Yeah, you certainly
Oh.
could. Yeah.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
But
So anyway,
So it needs to
Like,
be.
did you
there
guys
need to be
go to
decibel
home?
limits.
But did you guys go to any talks? The
I
answer's
went to
probably
one
no.
talk.
there's
I
talks
went
at
to
DEF CON?
one talk.
I went
What
to
was
one
your
talk.
talk? What was the talk you went
I
to?
went
Bill?
to one talk.
I went to Sean
gave one
Metcalf's
talk.
talk. No, right. So Larry went and gave the same talk, right? Yeah, but so I went to
Oh,
Sean
and there
Metcalf's
goes
talk.
Bill.
GitHub's down.
GitHub's
Get
down,
up,
and
GitHub's
Bill is
down.
down.
And so,
So
is
Bill-
Bill,
what- Bill's
Bill
back.
always goes down though.
What talk did you go to, Bill?
So I went to Sean Metcalf's talk on IR of Azure or Intra AD.
Oh yeah,
right?
Sean's awesome. We love Sean. He's
Fantastic,
been a
man,
host on the
fantastic.
network. He's
Yep.
a great guy.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
Did anyone go to B sides?
Well,
Jeff?
define go to B sides.
Did you go to the Tuscany where they held B sides?
Yeah,
Jeff,
yes.
I think Jeff wins the prize for at least on the show most
This is
badges.
just all the badges I got last week.
He was a busy
Hopefully
man.
we'll get
Awesome
through them
badges.
at some point.
I went to
was-
B sides, but I only went to the QueerCon pool party.
Oh, okay.
So
That's cool. That's great.
I
event,
was at
actually.
B sides both days. Did the pool party because I spoke at Sky Talks. Thanks to Mandy, she got me into it. So there's my Sky Talks speaker badge. Sky Talks used to be affiliated with DEF CON. Now it's affiliated with
B-Sides Las Vegas.
Yeah, okay.
B sides,
which is really nice. The B-Sides affiliation is. I'm on the board of Sky Talks, and it's like they've been treating us beautifully. It's really nice.
Well,
So, yeah-
and
so,
then
yeah, I went to
more
one- I went
get.
to one
I got
talk.
the hammer for. I'm not done yet, Larry. I got the hammer for speaking at Sky's Talks, and Pyro, who apparently was.
Wait, you know
fundamentally
Pyro?
s- I know
Everybody
Pyro.
knows. Everybody knows Pyro.
I only met Pyro a year ago at RVA Sec Paul.
Oh,
But,
did we
he-
have fun with Pyro?
He came to my
know-
talk.
you-
He was
you know
apparently
Pyro?
was one of the
Hey,
people
that's
that
awesome.
started
I'm
Sky
on the mailing
Talks.
He's
And
awesome.
he's I knew it was supposed to be edgy and say things that people aren't gonna say
Yeah.
if it's being recorded, so I tried to take that to heart. Apparently, I was one of the fastest talks. They were giving out medallions as tickets to get to the Sky Talks. They would pass them out, and my talk was one of the ones that went the most quickly. It was
Cool.
a sellout, standing room only,
Awesome.
and they
Wait,
wanted
now,
to
did
hear
any- did anyone go to
hear
Black Hat?
NSA stories.
Did
I
anyone
was
go
a-
to Black Hat?
Yep.
Yes, I was Black Hat too.
You guys were Black Hat too.
Yep.
Did talks at Black Hat or no? You didn't do talks.
I
'Cause
didn't
you
do
need
talks.
I didn't
was
get-
doing.
I didn't-
It's expensive to get a badge to
Yep.
let you in the talks.
I
at
didn't
Black Hat.
pay for
unless
a
you want
badge.
to hack your way in, which I don't know,
Unless
some people
you're
still
a
do, but-
media pass because of your affiliation with a long-standing, well-respected podcast.
There you go.
Hell yeah. Hacks.
I did a bunch of the live streaming interviews for.
Oh,
what do
that's
they call
right.
it?
Okay.
Cyber Risk TV or whatever.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
so-
So
and so
I
was
went
there.
to I did go to a talk. It was mine, and Milo actually went to a talk, and Milo went to DEF CON and actually Black Hat as well with me. And Milo went to a talk because I didn't know Milo was into like airplanes and like
Nice.
Aerospace Village was awesome. And they went to a talk on hacking plane anti-collision stuff,
Cool.
which was fascinating.
Look, if by the way, if anybody listening or watching has never been to any of the villages, dear bloody lord, ICS Village, Aerospace
Village.
Village,
There's like
biohacking
30
village.
villages now. All of
IoT
them.
like,
Village, Embedded
They're
Systems Village.
insane.
There's a PCI village.
There's a,
That's
there's a,
great.
po- there's
No,
a
it's-
policy village. Like
Payments,
your old
but
there's a
Zen.
payments village. You can go
Yes.
in and hack point
One of the
sale
things,
systems.
but one of the things I'm taking from is that everyone seems to like the fact it was in the convention center,
Yeah.
the Las Vegas Convention Center. That you ran into people you knew. It was all under one roof, and that's refreshing because I heard a lot of like basically negative feedback about the various venues in the past for various reasons.
Let's put it this way.
So it's good to hear that.
Let's put it this way.
I'm excited
The
for next year
sound,
already.
the sound part, and the sound bleeding over is
A minor inconvenience?
I'd
Yeah.
take it over
Sure.
Yeah.
over everything else.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I helped participate in my first ever contest at DEF CON. Milo wanted to
Oh.
do the tinfoil hat contest. So
Okay.
I
What is
helped.
the tinfoil hat contest?
Well,
Explain.
you create a tinfoil hat, and then they put it on a mannequin, and they beam signals at it, and see how many signals make it into the mannequin. It's awesome.
Dude, that's cool.
And there's two categories. There's classic, where you just use tinfoil, and then there's the open, which you can like put tinfoil around a supporting structure, and you can use glue and stickers and to hold it all together, and you name it. Milo went for the classic, and when we left on Saturday, they were in third place.
Whoa, that's awesome.
It's amazing.
and you still don't know if they won, but you haven't heard, so maybe they got.
Yeah, no,
slipped
they
out.
probably didn't win because you can only go up. You don't go down when you do multiple tests. So they did not go any higher than third place. So
So I got two more badges to go through.
Oh,
One is
God.
one that was made for me by a friend of mine named Tech Nick. He's a member of the 303 that I met through Pyro.
dude,
And
you know
if
Pyro?
That's my actual hacker handle. I'm like revealing that on air.
Oh
officially
shit.
From back in the day. And a future CTF. When I first got on the internet, I had a shell account to a local ISP. I had a static IP address. I want somebody to find what my static IP address was. And
Challenge.
finally, if we can shift gears and talk for a few minutes, this will be the positive.
Is this a
uplifting
car
portion
hacking
of our episode.
transition?
No, this is the what do you do when you know somebody whose son is in the Olympics portion
Oh,
of
shit.
Oh yeah, that was
Yeah.
awesome.
A lot of us know Ray Redacted from the community. I met him many years ago when the Tribe of Hackers books were coming out, and I've been following along. We've all been following along that his son's in the Olympics, going to the Olympics, preparing for the Olympics. I woke up, I think days are challenging to me. Tuesday morning or Wednesday morning, his son had competed in the quarterfinals in what's called speed climbing. So he climbs rock walls in like less than 5 seconds. And Ray had posted, "This is what it looks like for your son to win the quarterfinal at the Olympics and set the world record." And I was in my hotel room,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "This is amazing! I'm not crying, really, I'm not."
Who's cutting onions?
And the semifinal was going to be the next day, and then the final the day after. So, and I had lost track. It was Vegas, it was DEF CON. And so Friday morning I wake up, I'm like, oh, I wonder what he did. And I'm looking online, and apparently His son Sam set the world record, but in the consolation round. So he's bronze medal winner. And I'm like, okay, I guess he lost the semifinal. I'd missed out on that. A lot of people stayed up, 3:30 in the morning to watch all this stuff live in Vegas. But
His
I
son looked
also
like a goddamn bat flying up the wall.
it's
Unbelievable.
insane. But
Spider-Man.
Paul,
I
Paul,
showed
if
the
you-
video to my family, and they were like, "That looks like Spider-Man."
It's crazy.
Mm.
And he apparently slipped in the semifinal. You can't tell because he lost the semifinal by like 7/100ths of a second, which I can't calculate. But I also on Friday I got a message from Ray, and he said, "Dude, are you going to be around Saturday or Sunday? Because I'm coming to Vegas and I want to see you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll be here. I'm leaving Sunday, but I'll be around Saturday." He said, "I'm coming. I'm going to find you. I'm going to hug you because you were right." Apparently, we had a conversation back when we had the Tribe of Hackers Summit in Austin back in 2019, and he was telling me then about his son is, how old was he at the time? 12, 13, 14. He's in this thing called speed climbing and he wants to go to the Olympics. And he was like, how do I be a good dad and help him become the best climber? And this is not advice that this is not unique advice. I'd give it to any parent. How do you help your children succeed? You let them fall.
Mm-hmm.
So I apparently told him that, but he's like, you said that 5 years ago and it was right. Because as Ray told me later on when I did see him in Vegas, his son in the old days, if he had lost a race, he would have just fallen apart. He apparently competed in some world invitational event like a year and a half ago that if he had won, he would have been an automatic berth at the Olympics. And then they could have set the schedule so they could have been peaking right for the Olympics rather than going through all the trials and stuff like that. But he messed up in that competition and ended up like 87 out of 87. He was dead last. So long story short, Ray found me and he said, you gave me advice. It passed on to my son so that when he lost the semifinal, instead of falling apart, he went back and not only did he win the consolation round, but he won he broke his own world record. But he awarded me lifetime. This is the badge that I will cherish for the rest of my life. He awarded me lifetime membership in Team Sam.
Dude, that's incredible.
It's awesome.
And so I'm like, and I've been looking online and Twitter and everything. Everybody saw Ray. Everybody's getting their selfies with Ray, and everybody was getting the wristbands and the T-shirts. But he came to Vegas to give me this badge.
Dude, that's so incredible.
That's awesome.
Cool.
So I kind of told him, I guess I'm going to the LA Olympics in 28 since I'm now a member of Team
Hell
Sam.
yeah,
I hope all of
you can go
I
right
hope
from
all
there
of
to
y'all
DEF
can
CON.
join.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or to leave
Anyway.
DEF CON to go there.
That's
all
all my badges, and now I'm going to take them off because they weigh
So I gotta-
17 pounds.
I got to tell you, Paul, I was able to meet Mr. Jeff Mann this year in Vegas for the first time, but I had to wait my turn. That man had like a circle of people around him, and I was like, Jeff, hey Jeff, and he's like, 1 minute, I'm busy.
Get in line,
Like,
Bill.
Get
like,
in
there's
line.
no
There-
just because
like-
we do a podcast
right.
together doesn't mean you can cut the line.
I'm not
okay?
kidding you. That is exactly what happened. There was like this line and like people like, oh, Jeff. And like, he told me to wait my turn. So, but like,
And
I got the, the one selfie with him and he's like, okay, now. Get out.
Okay, now you're done. Now you
Yeah.
gotta go.
And
with
I
him.
didn't realize Sam Bound was there, and I thought I saw
I
him in passing, but I
know.
wasn't sure it was him. And he was in the middle of talking to folks, and I was in the rush to get somewhere. And I never saw him again.
Yeah, I'm
That
bummed
sucks.
we didn't get to see Sam. Mandy was there.
Yep.
She's
Yep.
bummed she didn't get to see Sam. I'm bummed I didn't get to see Sam.
Saw Mandy a lot.
Well, there was also some really cool resources came out of the
Oh heck yeah!
conferences. Oh my god!
Blah,
Speaking
blah,
speaking
blah.
of
It's
news,
it's been consuming like much of my life is just trying to keep up with all the resources that came out. And like I blink an eye or whatever, and I come back to my desk, and my Slack is blowing up, and they're like, one of the things was Sinkclose. So this is a vulnerability in AMD processors, and the Wired got the scoop on it. Andy Greenberg actually got the scoop on the story and posted about it. And this is IO Active research team is who discovered this. And basically the crucial part is something that goes back to what Spaff was saying, right? Like old features that are there to support legacy stuff. So there's the TSEG that prevents the computer's operating system from writing to protected parts of memory, reserved for system management mode, also lovingly known as SMRAM, right? That's one of the things that your computer does when it first boots up, is set aside a memory region that is specifically for system management.
Yep.
Portion of RAM, and like no one else is supposed to have access to this, right? It's kind of like this is reserved for the system, like everyone else, like GTFO. This is for us. And so a lot of these vulnerabilities that revolve around SMM or system management mode give people who shouldn't have access to that RAM access to that RAM. And it was based on a compatibility for older devices that use the same memory addresses as SMRAM is in more modern computers, right? Which I thought was kind of interesting. So it's interesting. The things that were said in this article like rubbed me the wrong way, right? Because they talked about how you need to be on the system and you need to have kernel level access in order to exploit this. And like this debate continues. It really grinds my gears about whether like this is a huge problem or not. Bugs like this, vulnerabilities like this, are they a huge problem? And I think people are dismissing this because of a couple of reasons. One, because you need local kernel privileges to exploit this. And I'm like, we talk about every week on this show. There's so many ways to gain this level of privileges on Windows and Linux.
Yeah, just ask CrowdStrike.
But yeah, like I've lost count, right? Yeah, CrowdStrike is a number of examples. Again, we've covered them on the show. The other thing is that people will say, well, only nation state level attackers will use this attack vector. No, there's so many exploits for UEFI that I've lost count. But why do we believe that nation state level attackers are the only ones that will use this type of exploit?
But Paul, you have to understand that's code for it. It's really complex and complicated.
Correct.
And it costs
An
money.
advanced
Great
attack.
point, Jeff.
It's advanced attack.
Yes, all great points, right? Like, why would you also like? Why would you not care about nation state attacks? I think people have this again. This goes back to cybersecurity myths with Spaff, right? Like, I'm just a company here in the U.S. Why would any nation state want to target me? Look, you're in scope for all nation state level attacks.
Yep.
If you run a company here in the U.S., small, large, or indifferent, right? You're in the crosshairs of nation state level attackers.
Slightly oversimplifying it.
But so the counterpoint to that is that we, traditionally, if you look at all the attacks, let's go back 8 years, right? So we've had a lot of these processor flaws, and whatever their names were, but we just don't. Right there, that's right. But we're not seeing them being used. I think is really what it comes down to. How many attacks have we seen that where they used a CPU level exploit to further their whatever, so
roughly. So this is exactly what I'm working on at work. So roughly 70% of the sysakev is like firmware based vulnerabilities, right?
Wow.
There is a whole entire category in the MITRE ATT&CK framework for UEFI level vulnerabilities, and MITRE ATT&CK is based on observable requests in there.
Okay,
There's
so
also like a history.
But wait, that doesn't matter.
Why doesn't it matter?
Because the statement that you started out with was that if you're a company, a business, an organization in this country, you're in the how'd you put it?
Crosshairs.
In the crosshairs of a nation-state attacker, and that's
not
true and not true. But it's because it depends on which value of true you believe. Let me explain.
What's the definition of is?
Thank you. That was beautiful. You are in the target zone for a nation-state attacker, but it's not the crosshairs of a sniper rifle. It's more like the area that a mortar round's going to hit. It's an area effect. You're definitely when I used to work at White Hat with Jeremiah, it was there's a targeted attack. You're a targeted victim or an untargeted victim. You have a skilled attacker or an unskilled attacker. Okay. And so you can be in an untargeted attack by an unskilled attacker. you can still get hit and whacked, but it's not like they were coming after you with any, Spectre and Meltdown or whatever. It's just that you got whacked by, back in those days, Blazer or Slammer or whatever, right?
But
The Morris worm.
if you believe that nation state attackers
That's
want to
generationally off from what you were just saying.
But there's two things. I think that nation state attackers aren't necessarily always going after a targeted thing where they're doing something very specific. They may just want to disrupt things here in the US.
Yep.
Valid and
Right?
agreed. They may throw a wide net and see what they get.
And-
I get it. You're right.
Or they just want to cause disruption. And if you're part of that disruption, doesn't matter who you are, if they can cause disruption.
Or it's a disinformation campaign, as it were.
Psyops, disinformation.
Or they just want to show how vulnerable the US is, right?
But the euphemism, Paul, is it's targeted. Josh brought that up.
But also,
it's
just
a
because something,
attack.
the other part of that is, and my other counterpoint is, just because something's complex doesn't necessarily complex today doesn't mean that only nation state attackers are going to use it. It's
So I completely
more
agree
and
with
more
you.
becoming more of a commodity thing. Again,
Yep.
I've flagged at least 2 or 3 GitHub repos. They're doing this style
Not
of
lately,
attack.
you have.
Not since GitHub is down. Before GitHub went down, I bookmarked them for later usage when GitHub brings back up. But so these attacks are going to be more ubiquitous. Well, now it's out there. It doesn't mean that just because it's out there and it's complex, only nation state attackers are going to use it. All attackers are going to use it. It's a valid
Paul,
path
is it a
to
UbiKey
maintain.
or a YubiKey?
What's that?
Is it a UbiKey or a YubiKey?
Ubiquitous, not ubiquity, not YubiKey. Ubiquitous is the English term, which means any attacker.
Is it a wrench or a spanner?
So, Paul, I think your point is we're only
Let
one
me whack
tack
you upside
away.
the head and we'll talk about it.
Hold on,
we're-
I want to hear what Bill has to say because I think he's agreeing with me.
Yeah, I do. Like we're only one attack away for people to really start caring about it. Is
Correct.
really what you're saying, and I completely agree with you.
Bullshit.
Bullshit. So I think that if you take a look at what so we're seeing like what's the term, O days, but they're not O days, but being rolled into ransomware groups in a matter of minutes, hours, right? So it's not too far like removed to think that, hey, at some point they may start leveraging like CPU based attacks or whatever, like and I think there's only one. We're only one big attack away before people start.
No, I agree, and
Well,
I think I classify these
don't.
as pre-operating system attack
right.
surface, right?
Mhm.
And so Black Lotus was the most recent example of being used in the wild to get in before the operating system loads to circumvent controls. As our controls get better in the operating system, attackers are going to go, well, I'm just going to try and load malware before the operating system.
Yeah.
And you can go to things like your bootloaders and UEFI and the other talk that I read, which is my next story, which
Let's
is
be bad guys.
option ROMs, right?
Yeah.
Let's be Jeff.
Let's be Jeff.
Dude,
Well,
if
okay,
we were
actually, I
bad
wanna-
guys, I could
hang on a
arm you
second.
with shit that once you get on a system, dude, no one would ever know that you were there. You can persist through OS rebuilds. You
Yep.
can bypass EDR. That's why I'm so yeah, you disagree with me, fine, but that's why I'm so hyped up. And yes, that's what I do in my day job. But the reason I work in my day job is because I'm legit concerned about this shit and have been for a long time.
And you want a paycheck.
12
Well,
or 15 years ago, Travis.
It's
Kinski
back, but
showed
it's
me
back
how
to
put-
Spaff's things about the paycheck. Yes, I do want to
Yeah.
see my company do well. That I work for my day job. Yes, that is true. But also, one of the other incentives I have is I don't want people to dismiss attack surface and dismiss these threats when they are in fact real. But due to a lot of misconceptions and misaligned perceptions, you're not applying the remediation, right? Go apply the remediation.
I think you're being over generous, Paul. It's because there's too much low hanging fruit out there where attackers, bad guys, third party, nation state attackers, whatever we want to ascribe to them, they have success in other ways and they don't have to get around to it. The part of the problem is all these problems exist and things that you care about and a lot of other people care about, but the bad guys haven't had to resort to that yet because there's too many other.
Right.
I mean, years ago, in the early days of PCI, with the antivirus, anti-malware requirements, people focused on Windows, and people that were running Apple devices said, well, we don't have to worry about it because Apple doesn't have viruses and malware. And I
Right.
always suspected
But
then that,
I give you
that's because nobody's looking for them.
But I don't want
Because-
us to wait. But I don't want us to wait too long.
I know,
right?
but,
Like,
but
we've
motivate the
seen these
people not to wait.
But Jeff, you'll
Okay,
appreciate this, right? Hold on, Josh. Jeff, you'll appreciate this. Like, we've seen attacker techniques change because back in the day, we could use a remote exploit for Telnet, or
Yep.
even if they had SSH back then, and get into the system. I didn't have to social engineer a user to
Right.
get on that system. I could remotely exploit it, right? Hi, Larry. And so, but when we started locking down those remote, easily exploitable exploitable is probably the wrong term, right? Like easily accessible remote exploits, attacker said, well, I'm just going to start phishing users, and that's how I'm going to get on the system. So we've seen these shifts in the attacker
Arms race.
behavior based on how we've improved our defenses. My prediction is that as we continue to improve operating system defenses, that we're going to force the attackers to go use these other methods that are then bypassing the awesome things we're doing in the OS, like EDR and Windows protections and all those things.
And
Totally
Sinkclose is
agree. Totally agree.
unfixable.
So
Sinkclose is
let's
Sinkclose,
be
well,
clear.
Sinkclose
Let's
is fixable. It's up
Right.
to AMD and the OEMs as to whether or not they are going to fix it. I'm literally sitting on my desktop at home that I had to do some I don't like this. I don't like that on a Linux system there are really not, that I could find, any tools to tell me what my AGESA version is. AGESA. I forget what it stands for, but it's AMD's. It's not just CPU microcode, but it's like their platform controller hub. It's like their the firmware that runs in the platform and on the CPU is kind of rolled into what AMD calls AGESA, and that's the component that's vulnerable. I had to use my commercial tool from my day job to figure out what version that was to determine if I was vulnerable. And it was kind of, even then, it was kind of like a lot of work. I had multiple tabs open in a, the Chrome browser. And I'm like, this shouldn't be the case. This should be something that all of us could go query on our systems. There are Windows utilities that can query for it, but that's how I figured out I'm vulnerable. But it's up to my motherboard manufacturers, Asus. They haven't released a BIOS update for it yet. So I'm like, now I'm just sitting here twiddling my thumbs waiting. I'm like, so when am I going to be protected?
But it's okay. It's only nation state stuff.
Yeah. So, hey, China, if you want to hack me, it's fair game, man. Like, all you do is get on my, once you get on my box, it's fair game.
The other part of the euphemism of nation state is it's sort of nobody can afford to protect against that.
It's really difficult.
Nobody can defend
it's really
against
difficult.
nation
It's
state.
difficult.
It's
but
so
it
difficult
doesn't
to apply a
do it.
firmware update. I mean, it is, but
Well, it
also it
is.
isn't. And it has gotten a lot better over the past 20 plus years applying firmware updates.
Does it show up in the vulnerability scan?
No. Well, that's
then it's not a problem. What are we talking about?
Well, that's my other issue, Jeff. That's my other issue. If you're
Let's
only
move on. It's not even a vulnerability.
And
Because
that's
I
there's
will
no
just
CVE for
I'm
it.
going to stick my head in the sand and go,
Yes.
I don't see it,
Yes,
so
that's
therefore
exactly
it's
it.
not there.
You know why I said bullshit to Bill? Because Bill said it's going to take one big attack and everybody will care. And that's what I said bullshit to.
well,
Yep.
Because that has absolutely been proven wrong.
Yeah.
Do you
multiple-
remember 9/11?
More than likely
Y'all are-
multiple. It's more likely more than one, right?
Y'all are old enough to remember 9/11. I in
Yes.
the talk I'm giving this year, I'm doing the chronology of my career, and it happens to traverse 2001 and 9/11. And I said that was a very interesting time because we've been going around, we security professionals, trying to convince companies to pay attention to security, do the things, build programs. 9/11 happened, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my god, bad things really can happen. Like, yeah, just
we
saying.
told you. Yep.
And we had the focus and the intention of companies, their full undivided attention, and it lasted a good 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk about option ROMs a little bit, but I want to maybe offer up an analogy.
And then I want to talk about some other DEF CON research.
Yeah, to describe how this works. This is the old option ROM research is one of my favorite pieces of research to come out of Hacker Summer Camp this year. So here's the thing. When you boot your computer, it's kind of similar like when you're trying to start your weed whacker or your blower, right? Got to make sure you put gas in it. You got to make sure you put the choke to a certain thing.
Gas, air, and spark.
Right, and the thing is set to run, and then you're going to push the little bulb to prime the pump, and then you're going to pull the thing to actually start it. Right, like
there's a process, there's a procedure for
and things
for getting gas, air, and spark.
Right, and you got to do those things and prime those things for the next step. Right, and your computer's doing the same thing. So when you push the power button on your computer, there's code that runs on your hardware, aka firmware, that is doing the similar kind of thing. It's initializing the hardware in stages, much like how you would start your lawn equipment. It's doing it in stages. Very low level initialization of the hardware, UEFI loads, and then starts to go, oh, you have these devices.
Oh, hey, there's a hard drive.
Yeah, like how do I talk to those hard drives? And it loads things that are called Dixie drivers, driver execution environment. Jesse Michael came on the show and talked about that, right? But then there's like another stage where the component, like a network card, can go, hey, I've got extra instructions.
In fact, this one's Normus.
Yeah, on how you can initialize me. So like, here's some more code to help you initialize this device. Those are called option ROMs. They're loaded in the Dixie phase. And the presentation in my story number 7 talked about how you can exploit option ROMs to execute code in those early stages before your bootloader runs, before your operating system runs, to do that, and it pulls the code off of the device.
So you could use the Normus option ROM in the Dixie phase.
With the enormous
No, Normus, because then you'd have a Dixie Normus.
I was wondering where you were going with that.
Sorry,
I got to work on the setup on that.
God,
So like someone
if you have to explain it, it's not a good joke.
Yeah, but someone in the supply chain, right, could go, I'm gonna backdoor the code that lives on these devices and put it out there. That's one way. The other way is like I take one of those devices and I can make an evil network card, right? So I can put malicious option ROM code on there. We've seen
these, yep.
And then I can go install it in a server. But the third way is through username in the kernel, I can like write malicious code to the option ROM. And this talk goes through in great detail on how to do that, but also talks about how very specific tips for bypassing EDR, for hooking code in the boot process, specifically in places where he's like, EDR cannot look here because of reasons. And I haven't watched the talk. Like I've read the slides, and then I have the source code in GitHub, and when GitHub comes back up, I can go back and look at it. It's back up now. So you can go back and look at the code that does that. And it's really fascinating. Really awesome. So, and again, but with the specific goal of bypassing EDR, disabling operating system protections, all that before the operating system loads. So this was my favorite. Go read through the slides and the GitHub. Like I want to spend some even more time with this and get it working. And, I think some of the code that they've produced is not, I'll go on a limb and say not fully weaponized, whatever. Like they're not just like producing, hey, just drop this code here and then magically like you've got C2 that no one can see. Like it leaves the exercise for the reader to do some of that stuff. But it's really, really cool research.
Speaking of DEF CON research, not necessarily at DEF CON, but there was some stuff released at DEF CON adjacent. Specifically, my story number
Black
6.
Hat.
Black Hat. Yeah, you're right. Black Hat. All right. So my story number 6. A story from Forescout and Finite State.
We talked about this last week, and I said, look, I quoted you that you were quoted in the article.
Nice. And I wasn't even here.
I was like, Larry said this, and I'm like, Larry's not here this week, so maybe when he comes back, we can talk about it.
What did I say in that article?
I read the quote. Yeah, stuff and I read the quote. Whatever you were quoted in the article is what I read on the show.
That's awesome.
And I didn't tell the audience that it was you. I was just reading a quote from the article. I'm like, says Larry Pesci, director of whatever your title is at Finance Today.
Director of Product Security Research and Analysis.
Yeah, that was it.
And Services Team Lead. So yeah, it was
Chief
lots
cook
of
and
fun.
Washer, what?
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of words in my title.
Janitor and
Chief Cook and Bottle Washer.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, Swami of Security and Oracle of the Online.
I think we should make T-shirts. InfoSec janitor, by the way.
I love it.
There's a guy that has his handle InfoSec janitor.
Yeah,
There's
he's
also
a good
someone with their
he's-
handle janitor. He's just
Yep.
janitor.
Yep.
He's awesome too.
That's him. That's
Oh, is that him? Is that the same
Yeah,
person
InfoSec
we're talking about?
yeah.
And he
Okay.
just got 2 shouts out. That's amazing.
That's
Right? How awesome is
and Spaff was
He
talking
will-
about him the whole time.
right?
he will hate it.
That's awesome.
I
He's gonna have
agree,
to clean
Josh. He
up
probably
this
will hate the
mess.
fact that where he's like, "Don't talk about me on the show. Stop
Yeah.
that shit. Move
Yeah,
on."
yeah. I'm just a petite flower.
In any case, lots of fun research. We looked at about 290 OT IoT cellular based routers, primarily used in OT ICS type of stuff.
Yep.
We-
in the similar ones you use in the ports. We covered a story about
probably
there was cellular modems in the cranes that operate on the ports.
sounds
Yeah.
about
So, like, but
about right. Yeah,
that's a
sounds-
use case
that
for
would
some
be
of the,
that
yeah,
would be
okay, I gotcha.
a use case. We picked the top 5 where firmware was readily available,
Yep.
meaning you could go download it off their website and those types
Which
of
makes
things.
things so much easier. We'll talk about that in a Sonos story, but yeah, it makes things so much easier.
Oh, it does
Sure.
that, and more research coming out of
Yep.
DEF CON for that. Pick the top 5. Of those 5, 4 out of the 5 leveraged OpenWrt.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
I remember reading this article now. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see.
I didn't talk about the details because I wanted to wait until you. Yeah.
Yep. An average of 161 known vulnerabilities, like CVEs.
Which just floors me, and I think I said this last week too, that you've got OpenWrt and a great facility to have an updated firmware
Yep.
on there because OpenWrt does a great job of keeping the firmware up to date. Yet you decided to go make some customizations, likely,
Mhm.
which is my theory. You can probably confirm or deny this
Mhm.
or not.
Yep.
But you got OpenWrt, gonna use this in my project, and I make customizations to it. I'm like, look at my awesome custom OpenWrt. OpenWrt goes, hey, there's updates, and I go, that's great. I
Yep.
can't backport all that stuff because I've customized
And
it.
it's arguably they probably really didn't customize the base operating system all
They,
that much.
they made drivers. They got
They-
drivers,
oh,
and those
it-
drivers have to be in a certain kernel version. or certain-
Exactly,
right, yeah.
exactly. So, to your point, average number 662 components, software components.
Yep.
And many of them being outdated by over 4 years.
But how many of those are accessible? Because that's my latest post.
Yeah.
4
So,
years? Did you say
some
4
some of
years?
them are 4 years outdated by 4 years.
Holy God.
Yep. So when you say reachable, stuff like the kernel and OpenSSL.
Yeah, but that has to be reachable.
Yep.
From by an attacker.
Well, OpenSSL
To be real, in my opinion, to be really truly critical,
agreed.
has to be reachable in some way by an attacker.
Yep.
Right. Like there has to
Has
be
to be
some kind
exploitable.
of there has to be some kind of initial access vector.
Define reachable.
Right. Well, an initial access vector.
It's the reach around
to the
that-
device because we're talking about devices that don't have a user I can socially engineer to succumb to some kind of phishing attack or whatever, right? But so
Right.
there has to be something else that provides an initial
You're,
access
you're,
vector.
you're looking for some sort of initial access vector like remote code execution,
Yeah.
command injection.
Typically in these
There's
IoT
a
devices,
trust relationship. There's a porter service that they're going to receive commands or signals from that they kind of
correct,
accept.
Jeff. I would look at
and some of and
the basically the management interfaces, whether that's the web
Okay.
interface or to your point, Jeff, how that device communicates and is managed in the environment
you
is
could-
the initial access vector.
and you could think about like other features running on these routers, like if they're if they're in the cases we've seen on stuff that runs on routers, we've said for years routers route and servers serve. Like you could put a Samba server on a router to serve data over USB thumb drive. Maybe they're doing UPnP
Mhm.
for being able to escape firewalls with dynamic rule sets, and like so it might not necessarily be a reachable service in the case of UPnP, but it may have some other functionality that could be interacted with to provide your
Right.
initial access.
I don't want to downplay it, but also like a lot of the kernel vulnerabilities that I've seen and analyzed on these devices, and that was my blog post that released today, was a firmware guide for pen testers, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it may have a vulnerable kernel, but if my remote exploit in my initial access vector gives me root, I don't really need the kernel vulnerability. And the
Right.
fact that it's there could be a big deal, could not be, right? If my initial access vector doesn't give me high enough privileges,
Yep.
then all of that other software that's on there could come into play.
Now, don't forget when we start talking kernel vulnerabilities, there's all sorts of kernel components that are potentially reachable via the network, like
That's true too. It could be.
TCP/IP.
That's very
in the
security
kernel,
researcher
and
optimistic of you. Yes,
wireless
but yeah,
Wi-Fi
yes.
in the kernel, or cellular drivers in the kernel, and so there's some possibilities there. So again, to Jeff's question, define reachable, and I totally get where you're going with that. Like, you got to be able to have that initial attack vector first to potentially get.
Well,
to
that's
some of
just,
these.
so I looked at Netgear firmware, and it was the same thing. Like, they have a public bug bounty with BugCrowd.
Yep.
I analyzed their firmware, and there was a lot of vulnerabilities there, but it didn't meet the criteria for their bug bounty, because like you have to actually show that it's working in the real world, and they have a very well documented program.
Yep.
And I followed all their guidelines, and I wasn't able to disclose it in their bug bounty program, because I'm like, yeah, I looked at your firmware and I found, like you did, found a bunch of vulnerabilities, right? That's great, but like you have to show an attack chain there.
Right.
I guess
Which
to
is,
clarify
I mean,
a little
is
bit.
there. I mean, it depends on how hard you want to look.
It's got to be. It's got to be
circumstances,
nation
but
state level.
It's got to be nation state level. We only care
Only
about
nation
nation
states
state level.
would know or care about this. I think I was trying to delineate between, you're saying reachable, and I think what I was going for more than anything, I was thinking trust, but it was really more, more feature related. There are certain things that are connected to make the thing work versus, hey, I just stumbled upon an open port, what can I do here, type of thing. So something related to trust, something related to feature.
Yep. I take this to, potentially back to Paul, your last story about dealing with stuff with UEFI and all this type of stuff. You've got to have some initial access to that system to make some of these things happen.
Correct.
So similar types of things.
LPE is where it's at. Right, Bill?
Hell
On a
yeah.
related note,
That's been the theme.
So to wrap up the the research on this one, I think my marketing folks said it perfectly. It was either our marketing folks or Four Scouts marketing folks said it was about what we expected.
Yeah.
Which wasn't all that great.
Right. But
Right.
I mean, it ties into the Sonos article, because you talk about an initial access vector.
Yeah.
And the was it NCC group who did the? I want to make sure I credit the right company with this.
That feels right.
NCC group. Yep.
Yeah.
So NCC group looked at Sonos, and to both of our points, right? The initial access vector was, in this case, Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi's.
Right. So like, in a lot of Wi-Fi attacks that we've established on the show almost 20 years ago, you don't need to be on the same Wi-Fi network. You just need to be in RF range, right? Proximity of this device. And so that was one of the ways they got into the Sonos device, was they analyzed the code inside the Sonos system. And again, some of it was like based on previous research. They did a great job of looking at the previous research that was there and building upon it to like basically completely tear down the security stack that Sonos had, which Sonos did not a bad job, by the way, of protecting their devices. When you read through this research report, it's not like some of them that we read that it's like a D-Link router with remote command injection vulnerability, pre-authentication. It was not that easy, right? There was multiple barriers that they had to overcome.
It was nation state level complexity.
Nation state level shit, man.
Yeah.
So they looked at the platform, and they were like, got the code from, again, other methods, analyzed it, and said there's a vulnerability in the Wi-Fi PSK handshake, I believe.
The WPA2 four-way handshake.
Yeah, the four-way handshake.
Like, how long have we been doing that for now?
Holy, it is again, this is Larry's realm, right? Like, there's a lot of, it's been studied before, let's just put it that way. But they were like, there's a vulnerability there, and then exploiting that vulnerability gave them access to the device.
Yeah,
but they weren't done there. And this is what I love.
And on my realm of that, like, what Wi-Fi chipset were you using? Where did they get the driver?
It's in the report.
Where did they get the drivers? Probably from the manufacturer in a binary blob on a specific Linux kernel.
Correct. It's all in the report.
How many other these devices are using the same damn
Could be
thing?
right. Exactly. That ties back to the supply chain. So, but once they get access to the device, there was also a U-boot bootloader attack that they talked about in this one as well. And there was passwords they had to bypass. But back to the Wi-Fi thing, they were able to exploit this vulnerability, gain access to the device, but then they weren't done. They're like, okay, that's great. Like, I have access to the device. What do I do? They're like, these devices have microphones on them. And so they proceeded to reverse engineer the Linux subsystem that was ALSA, that was on the device.
That's
and
awesome.
Were like put Telnet D on the device. They were able to upload Telnet D so they could Telnet into the device's root to execute commands that enable the microphone. And like, also, like, Linux and sound is a horrible,
Right.
horrible place. Like, it is.
So they had to have an exploit for ALSA, which was
It
just to
wasn't
be
really
able.
an
Wait, no.
exploit, like-
They had to have an exploit for ALSA, which was to use it.
Yes, they had to make ALSA work on Linux,
Yeah.
which is the most amazing part about this whole research paper, quite frankly, right?
I mean, that's
And they
called
improved
hacking right
Linux
there.
by
That's-
hacking it.
That's
Then they
hacking
get,
right there.
but then they get like on the device and they execute a command, enables the microphone, and they can record audio.
Hell yeah.
And they can, that's how you read the headlines. Sonos smart speakers, flaw allowed to eavesdrop on users. 100% true. I read the research report. 100% true. Like, awesome. I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
I'm going to go
That's
update my
insane.
Sonos speakers right now.
Yeah, like I thought Sonos died a horrible death with like
Oh.
their stuff, and I'm like looking at their website and you go to shop, and I'm like, I keep scrolling for the shit that they've got.
Dude,
like,
well,
holy crap!
They
The
shot
Sonos
themselves.
stuff is so awesome, man. I
It
don't know
is
what you're
awesome,
getting-
but
I'm
they-
like, oh my god.
They shot themselves in the foot when they came out with, we talked about this on the show, they were sunsetting, if you will, a bunch of devices not
Yes.
offering updates for them. It's
And
not
they-
compatible with the app. So they drew a line in the sand. It was
Yeah,
very
that
much,
stuff
and
was super old though. Like, I mean, like
it was an Apple move. So I was a Sonos early adopter, and I was caught by this, right? Like, the older gear doesn't work anymore. It was very Apple of them.
Yep, and they didn't so much draw a line in the sand as they pissed a line in the sand. I
Yeah.
think is more like it.
Yeah. It wasn't a line in the sand. Like, it was a hard and fast line. They're like,
That's a
everything,
deep
all these
metaphor,
devices
Larry.
were
What's that?
done.
That's
a
a
deep
deep
metaphor?
metaphor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pissed a line in the snow. I was just in somebody else's handwriting. Wait, what?
hey.
I think I'm mixing metaphors or jokes here somewhere, but whatever.
But back to UEFI.
Oh.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
No, I'm serious. My story number 22. I won't spend it-
UEFI is fucked. Moving on.
Yeah. So this is another article. GitHub repository. UEFI is screwed. Get
And
SMM.
GitHub's up right now, so you can go check it out.
Yep. You can get the GitHub for that one, and get code that does all the things that I said before. Also, if you want to emulate UEFI, we as Eclipsium have a GitHub repo that is accessible that you can download damn vulnerable UEFI.
Dude, that's
and
sick, man.
run
That's
virtualization,
cool.
right?
Yeah,
So like
that's super cool.
my theory now and thinking is like, what if I take these new exploits and use damn vulnerable UEFI so that you can practice these new exploits in a virtualization environment? It's awesome.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome to do and like to show people and just like it's brilliant. I love it.
Evangelize this stuff because that's like my job.
That's your job.
That's my job. That's my job. Yes.
So I had a
yeah.
research, or
Jeff.
at least a drop story. I think we interviewed this guy several years ago when he was Pen Test Academy, Vivek Ramachandran.
Vivek
Ramachandran.
Yep.
He's got a new gig now. He's working for a company for SquareX, and I interviewed him at Black Hat as part of Cyber Risk TV or whatever they call it. But he was alluding to they were dropping research. I think it's my story number 5.
Vivek's awesome.
Yeah.
Basically, it's like nobody looks at the browsers.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
But people haven't focused on the browsers as much as they used to.
I wouldn't say that either. There's a ton of browser research that's out there.
Okay, so
right.
yes, Jeff, go ahead.
So I mean, they dropped that there is a vulnerability, and I don't begin to understand it all, but basically focused on browsers and plugins, and nobody regulates the browsers, especially in this last couple of years where so many more people are
Nobody
working.
regulates browsers?
Nobody regulates browsers.
I thought the U.S. government did.
That's why I still use Firefox.
That's just so that's stupid. But
That's why I still am on Mosaic.
Yeah.
But if
Netscape Navigator.
I was hoping some of you guys might have read the article and could weigh in more definitively.
I did not.
But basically, they found a bug in browsers where they can trick people into loading plugins and things like that, and apparently you can launch things like ransomware just through plugins that are not regulated in any way, shape, or form. I'm oversimplifying it tremendously. So please,
So
somebody else weigh
effectively,
in.
add-ins and plugins and everything else are not only unregulated, heavens forfend, but they are able to attack you and damage you, just like Jeremiah Grossman did with the ad networks back in 2011. No,
Possibly. I mean, his point was, so many people are working remotely now, and they're doing their official, whether it's email or whatever applications they're using it very often via a browser, but the browser they're using at home, nobody's watching it, which I thought was interesting.
Party going on at Bill's house.
Mm-hmm.
Read the article. Let us know what you think.
I mean, it says exploited by an intern, so that tells me all I need to know.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, but I think he was on, or one of his coworkers was on the Shared Security podcast talking about this, and it was hard to listen to in the car to like digest this attack. But it has something to do with secure web gateways, so I'm not quite sure it's actually something in the browser. But he says the team managed to come up with a staggering 25 different bypasses of secure web gateway protections from major solutions providers, with every single one allowed to infect a target device via every popular web browser. So I don't think it's in the browser, but in the secure web gateway, like ones provided by, what did he say? Cloudflare, Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, and many others.
Yep. Big business not working, I think is what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are paying for this stuff and they think they're good. But then the nation state comes along and is able to do some things.
Nation states can do whatever they want, right?
Nation states apparently hire interns as well.
It's true.
Bill, I want to hear about your story.
Okay, so yeah, I have
so you can finally get back to your party, Bill.
Yeah, thank you. I only have one story today. And so there was a new tool released by the Hacker's Choice. Some of you guys may remember from back in the day, THC.
Dude,
yeah. So
such a huge legacy there.
Huge legacy. They recently, so over this last week, they released a tool called Hacker Shell, which we've all been there. Listen, we've all been there. You've got a reverse shell. It's a piece of shit. You can't you can't paste anything in there, whatever. And so there's, we've all been there. How do I upgrade this reverse shell into something that I can actually work into? And what the Hacker's Choice has released with Hacker Shell is a way to upgrade your reverse shell, your hacked reverse shell, into something you really want to use.
So what you're saying is even in Metasploit or a lot of other frameworks, it will shovel a shell back to you from a netcat listener, right? We've been doing that since the netcat was created, whenever that was.
Then once you've got that shoveled shell back, what do you do next? You load Hack Shell from THC. So essentially what it does is it makes your shell completely stealthy and hacker friendly. It hides all of your commands. It unsets the history file. It does all of the things that
So since I can execute code, I can upload a new shell.
That's right. Basically. Well, yeah, right. You're essentially running it. You're sourcing, their remote code into your new shell.
As a user, I can switch between Bash and ZSH or whatever, right? I can.
But so give that scenario that you just talked about, where you've metasploited something and you type shell and you've got just a junk shell, right? And
there's no command completion. There's no features.
We've all got those little tricks to upgrade our shell into something that we can actually live with. This is where you want to live these days. So this does all the tricks of hiding yourself, keeping you out of the log.
So there's some stealthiness component to it. Yeah,
it's amazing. But I did something for you, Paul. I did something for you.
It says you added some source code to it.
Was it Python download from run from mem, or was it linpeas and winpeas?
Both of those were mine, right? So I added, if you use the hack shell and you type LPE, it will then use it will figure out what OS you're running and then run the this is not my code. Like the LinPs or the WinPs is
Oh,
another.
yeah. It's
that
like a
will-
whole. It's like
It's a whole
Metasploit. It's like
package, right.
Metasploit, but for local privilege escalation. It
Looking
tries
for
all the.
local privilege
Right.
escalation because that's all that matters
Looking
these
for
days, right?
love in
So,
all the wrong
but
places.
so I just wanted to make sure that
Wait, so how
everybody-
did you added that? How did you added that functionality in?
Yeah.
This
So,
commits.
yeah.
This commits in the GitHub repo.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but I did it just for you, Paul. I did it just for the audience because
Dude, that's
we all,
awesome.
Because
Because so many times we're not root, and we need to be root. And
That's absolutely
LinPs
right.
basically is a bunch of scripts
And
that
he got it in-
tries all the local privilege escalation. It's like what was the automated Metasploit thing?
browser autopwn or
Yeah.
Autopwn. It's like
Yeah.
autopwn, but for Linux privilege or for privilege
privilege.
escalation, not just Linux,
Yeah.
right?
But
And he got
it
it in
works-
just under the wire. He did it yesterday because he
That's
didn't
right.
have a phone. He was probably being really productive.
That's both of those things are absolutely true. So so it works on Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and it's already been merged into the code base. So if all you have to do is type a real short source curl command that will then upgrade your reversed hacked shell, and you will love it. So definitely would suggest that any real hacker out there, go check that out. So that was my whole story.
Dude, that's
But,
awesome.
yeah.
I love it.
I figured since the title of this week was LPEs.
Do you have to be a real hacker to check it out,
or bad
anybody
guy
check
or
it out?
bad guy?
You can
or
be a
bad
fake
guy.
hacker.
Yeah,
You
or
can be a
bad
bad
guy.
guy.
Whatever.
Want to be hacker
Sure.
in training,
I'm in.
Sure.
hacker
I mean-
intern.
You can check it out, but you can't run it. You can only run it if you're a real hacker. That's it.
Okay.
Wait,
Also,
are you saying it's a command line interface?
It is. Yeah. So no GUIs or whatever they're called these days. I don't know. It's straight up command line interface like a real hacker.
There's not a button you click. You have to type something. Is that what you're saying?
There's a few
And you have to know the
buttons.
syntax.
That's right. Yep. Yeah,
Oh,
but it's
geez.
super easy. They've made
That's
it
old
awesome.
school.
I
Really
love
old
I
school.
like it's kind of been the resurgence of those old school groups, like we see Cold of Dead Cow dropping Valid and like Valid chat. Like I love that these
the
old
Hackers
school-
Choice website says it was founded in 1995.
God, that's so gangster, man. Like I love that these old hacker groups are back and actually contributing code and doing cool stuff.
But then it said, but also it dates it back to 1993. It says our greatest hits, 1993, redacted. That's what it says. Then it says 1994, various freaking tools, and credit card generator for DOS and Windows 95.
So that's where I learned of the hacker choice was the freaking tools. I think what was it called? Phone scan or
THC scan.
Hydro was on when I first learned. That was 2000. But maybe I might have used their first Solaris kernel module rootkit.
Like
in
generating
1999.
credit cards and hacking AOL like a boss.
Yep. I remember the 2001 GSM signals and decoding A51. In fact, I was digging through some drives today to find some NAS space and came across my A51 rainbow tables.
That's so awesome.
Deleted that.
You
shit. I
heard
don't
Bill
need those
say
anymore.
generating credit cards. That's PCI.
Yeah. First of all, I never did that. That was complete lie. I have no idea what you're talking
There's
about.
no proof.
And
You read about it on the
months
I
internet.
ago.
read
You
it
can't blame me.
in a zine or something. But speaking of NASs, I mean, did you see Paul's 26? How many stories does Paul get to submit every week?
lot.
I don't
As
know.
many as he wants. It's
Yeah, I
Dude,
guess
this
so.
but the title from this
Security.
article caught my attention.
What?
He said my keyboard was misbehaving, so I had to exploit my NAS. And I was like, "What? Gotta dig into this."
The
connection.
title got me right.
But the whole crux of it is, and Larry, you'll appreciate this, is that he has, and Josh, you will too. He's got a Zima board, and he's got Zima OS on it, and he wants to put the Zima OS on it that does the NAS functionality,
Right.
which is like a
I don't know what a
Zima
Zima
Cube.
board is.
It's
I
like
don't know what.
Zima board is just a small
Single board computer.
Intel x86 based computer.
Yeah.
They were on sale on Amazon Prime Day. The Zima board. What was the model number, Josh?
8 something 32.
Oh, I
832.
I remember we talked about this. I said to Josh, you spend $100 on the Zima board, and I'll spend $100 on Zimas, and we'll see who has a better time.
It was
right?
$186. It was $186 on sale, marked down from I believe $229.
I think
right.
Josh
So
won.
I bought one. I put OPN Sense on ours, and it's an additional gateway on the network that will eventually take over as the primary gateway.
It's just OpenSense.
Is it? But it's OPN Sense.
Yeah, OpenSense.
But there's no E in there.
OpenSense.
Yeah, but OPN OPN is in all
There's
caps,
no
which
O
makes
in
me
pone either.
like. But we
Yeah.
just talked about THC. I don't say
What the hell?
I say
don't
THC.
know.
The hell was that, Bill?
That wasn't me. That was Josh.
It was Josh.
What?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Jesus Christ.
You don't have the voice changers.
That'll start.
What are we?
Galactic.
Oh my God!
Galactic
What are we
Woods
talking
Away.
about? Okay, so
Zima.
okay, Zima boards.
Zima.
So you can buy anyway, and you can put a NAS distribution on it, and he did that, and then he booted it up, and it said you have to hit Alt F2 to set the root password, and the whole crux of this article is
He couldn't.
all my keyboards are less than equal to 60%. So the F row is activated by a function key, and he couldn't do that.
Wow.
And so, like he was like, "Wow, I could have bought a new keyboard, but that would have taken too long to ship from Amazon." I'm like, "Hold on, like this whole article could have been avoided had he had the pile of crap
right.
that I'm staring at here in the studio that represents roughly 20 years of Larry and I podcasting together, and we saved much of the good crap. We saved the good crap.
So I love this.
Like right there, I'm looking at a whole bin full of keyboards because I
Yeah,
saved
who doesn't
that
have
shit.
30 keyboards.
Right?
Who
I
doesn't?
saved that. You saved
Yeah.
keyboards. I'm not throwing away a
Yep.
keyboard. Who knows when I might need a keyboard?
I have my
Many-
original Apple wired keyboard that has the numpad on the side.
Dude.
I mean, like USB, not ADB.
so many
So,
keyboards.
I have one of those, too.
Also, a quick side note, I have a USB to serial RS-232 cable somewhere in the studio that I
Somewhere.
can't find. So I had to order two from Amazon because I can't find it in the 1,000 square feet and 20 years worth of gear. I just couldn't find it.
Mhm.
God.
I have
Anyway.
a 2-year-old. Extra keyboards are great toys for her, especially the RGB ones.
Oh, yeah,
You
dude.
plug them into a charging block in the wall. They don't do anything, but they
So
light up and
apparently,
they flash.
apparently this person could not find a keyboard, and so what he ended up doing was finding vulnerabilities in like the Zima OS web application that gave him post authentication remote code execution and disclosed the
Christ.
vulnerabilities.
Like-
which also I'm like, you know what, dude?
Problem solved, son. You know,
Like, dude, like, but also, like, this is an outdated term, but mad props, man.
Yeah.
Like mad
Seriously,
props.
mad
Like
props.
you are awesome. You're awesome.
This is a classic
awesome.
sysadmin. This is a classic sysadmin. I have a 5-minute task I've had to do twice. I'm going to spend 40 hours automating it.
Yeah. He's like, "Dude, that was a weekend. That was a weekend that I spent, and I found it, and it was awesome, and I solved my problem." Which also could have been solved by like calling up one of your friends, going, "Dude, can I borrow a keyboard?" God,
Yep.
you know, like,
And like the memes at the beginning of the article are on point. It's Jeremy Clarkson at the first one. You need to press F2 to enable SSH on your NAS, but your keyboard is not working. What do? A, buy a new keyboard. B, attack the NK infrastructure, wait for a Forbes article, and rant because the NSA ghosted you. C, exploit the API to get code execution and mount the hard drive and overwrite the shadow file. And then there's a XKCD article in there as well. And a guy sitting on the front steps. I'm locked out trying to get my roommate to let me in. First, I tried his cell phone, but it's off. Then I tried IRC, but she's not online. I couldn't find anything to throw at her window, so I SSH into the Mac and the Mac Mini in the living room, and I got the speech synthesizer to yell at her for me. But I think I left the volume way down, so I'm reading the OS X docs to learn how to set the volume via the command line. I take it the doorbell doesn't work?
yeah, that summarizes this article very nicely.
Yep.
Also, so much respect.
Yeah,
for sure.
that's awesome.
Awesome. I love it. I like when the title is equally as exciting as the article itself, right? Like sometimes I read like titles like that and I'm like, this is going to be great. And it's not great, but this one was great. So
So
appreciate that.
speaking of a great article, I'll hit one of mine real quick.
let's do it.
It's
Larry.
in.
I want to talk about lasers.
Yeah,
Can we talk about lasers?
Yeah,
Yes, let's talk
fucking
about lasers.
Sharks with fucking
Hell
lasers on their head.
Lasers. You gotta say it right.
Lasers. Sammy Camcar and lasers.
That's all I need to know. Like
Right.
Sammy Camcar and lasers, and like, dude, I'm in. I'm so in.
Yep. So effectively, Sammy said he was determined to build his own laser setup so that he could
What do they
recover
call that,
keystrokes.
It's what do they call that? This is not new technology.
It's not Tempest. It's
It's the 1992 movie. Jeff
Sneakers
used this technique.
Yeah, well, in a non-automated fashion, where they had the microphone and then
what is up with Wired? Like, I want to read the article. I don't want to pay.
Yeah,
it's like just this is.
But yeah,
it's capitalism, dude.
In any case, Sammy watched someone built a laser-based setup from a DEF CON talk 15 years ago, where they could detect keystrokes based on their individual sound. By using a laser pointed at a laptop from across the room, but he wanted to do that better.
What do they call that though? I feel like we need the term.
Laser microphone?
Laser microphone, laser acoustics. There's in the perfecting light-based keystroke eavesdropping.
I'm bowing out of this conversation.
I just need the term, Jeff. I don't need any government secrets. I just need to know what we call it. What do you call a laser?
Neither confirm nor deny.
Where? Hey, Jeff, what city do you live in, or what state?
Maryland. I'm from Maryland.
And you used to work.
I work for the DoD.
But I want to get the.
Please come out of the house.
I want to get the terminology right. It's a laser that can relay acoustic signals. It's
laser microphone.
It's laser microphone.
Yeah.
It's not
We're
that the
agreeing
laser
it's
relays
called
the acoustic signals. It's that what you shine the laser on is vibrating like a window glass.
Yep. Or the
laser,
little Apple logo on the back of your Mac, which is nice and reflective.
Right. Point the laser at anything.
Because everything vibrates.
Everything.
Your
desk vibrates
and
based
what
on
is
reflecting sound from your
sound.
voice.
The time that it takes to reflect back changes as it vibrates in incredibly tiny increments.
Mm-hmm.
So we're calling it a laser microphone. We're calling it a laser microphone. Is
Paul's still not convinced. Paul knows there's another term for it, and he's going to keep digging.
Because someone is in their car listening to this or something, yelling at us.
It's laser micrography.
Thank you. Laser micrography sounds way better than laser microphone. Laser microphone.
I think those are the same words.
They are.
It just ends with
laser microphone's way easier to say.
But it ends in ography, so
That's
it sounds like a science.
So
okay, sorry, we got that out of the way, Larry. Continue.
Long story short, he spent a couple of $1,000s in some hardware to make some really high fidelity optical eavesdropping equipment.
Yeah.
Which
so
which then he took that and amplitude modulated it. He turned it into AM radio, so then he could analyze that with just about any basic software-defined radio.
And what's the frequency range for AM radio, Larry?
Oh, gosh.
You should know this, Larry. I feel like you should know this.
9 What was the question, Jeff?
9 to 1,800 megahertz.
No, it goes lower than that. I used to
What was the
listen
question?
to AM 630. What's the frequency range for AM radio?
Without Wikipedia.
All I know
560 to 2,200, I'm guessing.
That's closer.
Okay. Either way, moving on.
Gigahertz.
We don't deserve
frequency
Sammy.
range of Jeff's ass. Come on.
And
I'm
then
from Maryland. What do I know?
Then used a bunch of software to
540 to 1,700 kilohertz is the answer, according to Google.
So use some audio stuff to remove noise called iZotope RX, and then a piece of software called KeyTap 3 that can convert the sound of the keystrokes into legible text. And in fact, his was incredibly precise.
Wow.
And from significant distance.
We don't deserve Sammy. Why is this guy so freaking cool? Like, everything he does is just absolutely incredible. Love the dude. Like,
I hate to say it. I want to be.
I want his phone.
I wonder
if he's ever been to Maryland.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Right. Yeah.
Bill, he doesn't lose his phone. He doesn't get drunk on.
The question is, has he been to
Mai Tais.
Maryland like voluntarily or not? that's the question.
And
I
AM
was
stands for.
Amplitude modulation.
Okay. What does FM
so.
stand for?
I just
We're
want to say
having two different conversations. The nerds are still talking about AM radio.
What does RTL SDR stand for?
Too long, I don't care.
something
Larry, do you
software
know?
defined radio.
RT.
What does the RTL stand for? in RTL
SDR is software defined radio.
We know that. I just said that.
I don't know what
Radio
RTL is.
translation language. Transmission. Radio transmission.
He doesn't even know. He's
language.
looking it on Wikipedia right now.
I
He
have
doesn't
no
know.
idea what it stands for. I just thought it would be interesting.
We suck.
I just hold on. I want to back up. I want to go back to something that Bill said about like we don't deserve Sammy because he's so awesome. I saw
Oh, it's
Sammy.
the Realtek chipset.
Can I?
Yeah.
I was.
Yeah.
I
Go
had a
ahead,
moment.
Paul.
I had. Yeah. So
Sorry.
it was like BrewCon 20.
Realtek, really?
It was like BrewCon 2011. And
That was the R?
I was watching Sammy talk about a DNS pinning attack that had
Wow,
to do
I
something
heard that
with IoT.
completely different.
I did too. Larry, I did too. I did too.
I didn't hear DNS pinning. I heard something with a penis in it.
Oh no, there was no penises involved. It was
Penis
DNS pinning.
You're doing penis pinning?
No,
Oh my
it wasn't
God,
penis
you're
pinning.
gross.
It was DNS pinning, and Sammy was awesome. And then we were like a speaker. He's just an awesome person. Awesome.
I want to be Sammy when I grow up. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the mess with
Larry,
Sammy
you're older
Worm.
than him.
But no. But no. You can't. You don't get to choose. Like your path is your path, and your experiences are
Yeah.
what shape you. And if you change your experiences, there is a Star Trek Next Generation episode. Jeff,
Oh,
I don't know if did you watch the Star Trek Next Generation episode where Picard interfaces with Q? Remember?
Yeah. I do
And
remember
he's
that.
like about to die, and he's about to die because he got stabbed in a bar fight like years ago. And he's like, I wish that never happened. Like, what would my life be like if that never happened? And Q shows him his life if that never happened. And he's not a captain of the starship. He's like an
I remember that.
ensign.
He's an
right?
ensign, and he's very hesitant and
Dude, it's one of the
second-guessing.
Star Trek episodes that like truly resonated with me. Like, I don't want to change anything about my life. And I'm sure Sammy would tell you the same thing because we've interviewed Sammy and have asked him. I'm like, dude, when you hacked MySpace, I'm like, that was friggin' awesome. I'm like, I understand
gangster.
it wasn't so
It was
awesome for you. Like, couldn't you use computers for a while? Like, shit. But he's like, yeah, but like, I recovered from that. He's like, actually, he was on the show and he told me because I'm like, dude, so you could go buy a computer. I'm like, what'd you do? He's like, well, I went to the Apple store, I bought a computer, I opened it up, I logged in, like I went to like a website or whatever, and then like I closed it and I went surfing. Like he was like, and then I did amazing security research. I'm like, that's what shaped. That's part of what shaped.
And
Sammy.
arguably the Sammy Worm and him going to prison and getting some of that notoriety.
No, did he go to prison? I don't think.
Or whatever.
No, I don't think he went to prison. But
in any case, whatever happened with the Sammy Worm allowed him a certain level of notoriety that he went to be able to say, "Hey, I just want someone to pay me to be able to do research."
Yeah.
And dude, but like all the things he's done since the Sammy Worm are amazing.
Yep, because someone pays him to do research.
And like, thankfully, to Bill's point, like we don't deserve. Thankfully, Sammy's still doing security research, and we get to see cool shit like this. That I can use a laser to sniff people's keyboards more now. Not that that's not necessarily a completely new thing, but the way Sammy did it is awesome, and I think more accurate based on what you've already described, Larry.
I like it.
And Adrian,
and to my
Adrian's like, well, it's just, no one is ever going to use this attack against me. I'm like, dude, I'm going to build one just to prove you wrong. Like,
And then-
can we crowdsource this? Can we all? Because then I realized it was like $2,000. I'm like, oh, that's kind of a lot of money to prove Adrian wrong. I'm like, is it though?
That's
I don't-
nation,
you know,
dude.
I would spend $2,000 to
that's-
prove Adrian wrong.
Dude, that's nation state level right
It's
there.
nation
Hell no.
state level shit. Let's create our own nation. Let's go get one of these lasers and let's steal all of Adrian's passwords.
I've got a
Not that
way
we're going
better
to use
idea,
them.
Paul.
We're just going to show them to them. We're not going to do anything malicious to Adrian. We're just be like, dude, I stole your passwords. Like,
Let's make a
ha-ha.
shitty one. Let's make a shitty one that only gets like half of the keystrokes or whatever,
Yeah,
You know,
what does
like
that cost us? Like $750?
No, probably less if you base it on that research from DEF CON 15 years ago. You probably pay more for eBay on that legacy gear than than for the 2000 for the new stuff Sammy used.
Or we give Sammy something that he really wants, like booze or
Two
whatever.
grand. $2,000.
or whatever. We give Sammy something less than $2,000.
Hey, Sammy,
and we're like, Sammy,
I
we want you to target Adrian. Like your target right now.
No.
is Adrian
Yeah.
Snow.
No.
Yeah,
You give
I
him
like
less than
that better.
$2,000 and you ask him to build one for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or that too.
No, just mail it to me, Sammy. I'll just text me and I'll give you my address. Anyone, actually, everyone. Like, go ahead.
Don't worry, Sammy probably already has your address.
It does.
He doesn't.
Sammy,
he doesn't
you know
have a
what? I
phone.
think what we're saying is Sammy is my hero.
Yeah, love it.
Wasn't that
I
so
mean,
great?
like, I've never met him, but man, like
awesome.
every time he drops something, I'm like, God damn, that thing is dope. Like,
He's also genuinely a nice guy.
He is.
Like
Yes.
genuinely will sit
Yes.
down and chat with you. But like our snake, Jeremiah, Sammy, they're all this like really sweet people. They're nice people.
He's so cool that he's
Oh,
figured
we
out
do.
stuff that Maryland citizens figured out 30 years ago. 40 years
hey,
ago.
I love it. I love all this whole time. Jeff has been like, God damn it, I just want to say this fucking shit.
But you know what,
Like-
Jeff? But you know what, Jeff? Those citizens of Maryland were funded at the nation state level.
That's right.
True.
That's true.
Oh.
And half of the time they were interns.
But still, they had lots of funding.
They did have lots of funding.
And that's how the DARPA Fast Track program came to be.
So, Larry, I didn't read your story about Winamp skins, but I'm interested, like, why it was added.
Oh, is that because we're old and we saw
Yeah.
Winamp skins? We're like, I recognize that
Yeah.
from back in the day,
yeah.
right?
No,
Well,
so
Winamp's back, just so you know.
How is
Winamp
Winamp back? Winamp's been
Yeah.
back like multiple times since
But this time for
1999.
real. But this time for
and and someone built like
Does
this
it really kick the llama's ass?
Yes,
Is that
no,
what
it doesn't kick the llama's ass. It whips the llama's
whips.
ass.
That's what it
Whips
was.
the
It
llama's
whips
ass.
the llama's ass.
Winamp, it really whips the llama's ass. So someone
Llama
actually
llama
built a
llama.
radio.
That sound
Llama's
clip, and
ass.
they should use that sound clip moving
Yeah.
forward. with
So
Larry.
someone Winamp is coming back. Someone actually built a radio with a touch screen that is actually modeled after Winamp skin,
God,
the original
damn, that's
Winamp
dope.
skin.
Hell yeah.
So this guy, Jordan Eldridge, collects Winamp skins from the community and is like it's like the Internet Archive.
There's
of
a
Winamp skins.
Winamp skin museum.
Yes,
What?
it's actually really cool.
Yep.
What?
Get
How
It's
much does
actually
it cost?
Is
to
it
go
in Maryland?
Do you know how many skins were built by people like people genuine? Remember, this is the time just coming out of mixtapes
Yeah.
and CDs and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Like people went nuts on Winamp. Winamp was really the first sort of not hackable, but really personalizable.
I'm reading this article. This is all you got to know. The password was Honda. No idea why it was encrypted.
Yep.
Nope.
Yep. So to TLDR it, I ended up down. He was looking through a bunch of the skins that he had as part of the museum. Some of them seemed corrupted, and he found encrypted files that he was able to crack to discover secrets. A gift a dad in Thailand had made for his 2.5-year-old son, but didn't want published online. Somebody's email password. A secret biography of Chet Baker. Cryptic backwards audio files. A file called worm.exe, which held quite the surprise, a host of extremely random images and files, and 56 previously unknown Winamp skins hidden inside other Winamp skins because people couldn't figure out how to zip things properly, apparently. One of them was a corrupted file, and it was called Wicked Ways, which contained just a PDF for advertising a rentable bowling pin mascot costume.
Is Winamp like the new Spotify? I just went to their website, and it looks like Spotify.
It's dope,
And
right?
There's like a '90s techno German channel.
It's
Like
OG.
German '90s techno. I would expect nothing less from like the
It's
Winamp
OG
version of
Spotify, Paul.
It's the, yes.
Dude, if I was on a Windows computer, I'd be Winamping so hard right now.
Nice.
I don't even know what that means, but it's funny. Oh my god!
Just like some of the random stuff that he found inside some of these was
It's awesome.
amazing. So the worm.exe wasn't in fact a virus. It was a game of worm,
Like Snake.
like Snake. Yep.
Centipede, like centipede.
Yep.
Maybe.
Larry, you had some other stories in there. I think two of them we talked about last week.
Possibly.
I don't know if you have anything to add. We talked about PK fail. We did a whole segment on PK fail.
I'm sure I
which
figured
the case.
that was a holdover.
Back to the Future, the Windows update, backporting, which To me,
you talked about that one last week.
like it's right up there with option ROMs is like my favorite resource released from this year's Hacker Summer Camp. The fact that you can, on a Windows system, basically wipe out patches that have been installed, but the OS is unaware of that.
Right. So you're effectively
we talk about, I mean, Bill,
backporting.
we joke about local privilege escalation, but like to me, that is like the ultimate. It's like LPE on steroids.
Yeah, no doubt. Like roll back the clock to give me that exploit, you know, like
Dude,
that
that's
is
but that like that
incredible.
enables so many things. The example actually I think they gave in the talk was a rollback to a vulnerable driver.
Yeah.
Like, but like so like anything Microsoft does. In fact, I just saw today, I didn't even have time to add into my stories, that Microsoft released fixes for the shim vulnerability. Remember we talked about I'm not taking credit. Bill Demercopy found the shim vulnerability. It's a vulnerability in the HTTP boot functionality of Linux shim bootloader, right? Bill
Wait,
works for Microsoft.
why did you say that you're not taking credit?
Because we were the ones at Eclipsium that, like, I was the one that publicized it. No one was talking about it. Like, it had been released for like almost a month, and like
it was
no
silent.
one paid attention to it. And I'm like, it's kind of like when I think about Mike Poor, the story that Mike Poor always tells when he goes in to evaluate the enterprise's security architecture, and they give him this big plotter diagram of all the systems, and he kind of strokes his beard and looks at the whole thing and takes his pen and he's like, what is that? And it's the biggest weakness in their security architecture. I was just going through my vulnerability feeds and I'm like,
what is
hold on,
that?
wait, what is, I gave the like Mike Poor like, what is that? I'm like, that is really bad, and no one is talking about it. And so we publicized it. My boss, Ariella, props to her, she gave it the name Shim Shady, and it kind of took off. And very
But
quick
does
to
it have
point
a
out,
logo?
I did not discover the vulnerability. It is Bill Demercopy's
You just raised
discovery.
awareness.
Yeah, I just raised awareness about it. I'm like, this is a big deal. And just yesterday or today, Microsoft said, hey, we released a fix for it. And in the FAQ, they're like, this is a Red Hat maintained shim.
Yep.
And they're like, why is Microsoft fixing a Red Hat vulnerability? And they have some quote in there how they put some detections inside of Windows to detect like the certificate chain in UEFI to detect if it was running or to prevent a vulnerable shim from doing what it did. And I was like, well, that's super interesting. So yeah, but similar to the Back to the Future kind of stuff. Craziness.
So,
Nice.
so speaking of Windows, Paul, like your number one, I think is going to be a hot topic, right? So,
is this the IPv6?
IPv6,
yes.
Yep.
I'm glad you called that out, Bill.
I think this one's going to be a hot one.
Because this is so. Like weirdly enough, now we're not talking about local privilege escalation, Bill.
That's right. Yeah.
RCE.
We're talking about RCE.
Only patch RCEs.
If you're only patching RCEs, this one should be maybe at the tops of your list if you have Windows systems with IPv6 enabled, apparently. I mean, that's
so
pretty much...
The good news is that we're only about 3 or 4 years away from transitioning fully to IPv6, right? So
I hear that every 3 or 4 years people tell me that.
And it's the year of the Linux desktop.
That's true. Next year.
So Josh, it will coincide. The year that we fully switched to IPv6 and the year of the Linux desktop will coincide.
Hey, nice stuff.
Yeah, it's not a fully operational.
And I think
that's
the
no moon.
the Mayan calendar ended the year of the Linux desktop. Oh wait, that already happened.
Yeah. So tell us about this
CVE 2024 38063. They say is not currently under active exploitation, but represents remote code execution vulnerabilities in the TCP/IP stack that processes IPv6 packets.
So from what I understand, and I haven't read a bunch about this yet, but from what I understand is that you need to send several IPv6 packets to a Windows host that has the IPv6. Oh my gosh, I couldn't even get it out. Enabled that will in some way. Secret. Whoa. But in some
secret
way,
ice.
Like
ice, baby.
Have a remote code execution as a result of this. And From what I'm gathering, this is going. It's a CVE score of 9.8 out of 10. It's a remote code execution on Windows. I don't know the status of being patched or anything like that, but
So
I
it
love it.
certainly.
You know, one of my favorite terms of all time in vulnerability write-ups in the past 20 years of doing this show, right, is specially crafted.
Specially crafted IP
Specially
packets.
crafted. Like that is the phrase that we always like.
the phrase that pays.
In remote code execution vulnerabilities specifically, specially crafted requests or packets, right? That's
Which
Artisan-
means it had a
Artisan
variable.
packets. Artisan
I
packets.
can-
Artisanal.
If I can
Yeah.
specially craft something, I
Art
can
is
hack
anal?
anything on the planet as long
Minus-
as I have something
by
that
someone
is
with a
specially
big-
crafted.
with a big beard like Larry's, right? This
Forward
guy put
slash
some work
Specially
into it.
crafted is the term.
He takes the packet out to the workshop and he crafts it, and
Specially
using
crafted.
old world tools and sandpaper.
Does that mean
and
you have to use a special font when you're typing it out?
I don't know, but it says for systems where IPv6 is not essential, disabling it could serve as a temporary
Yeah,
mitigation.
good
until
luck
the
with
patch is
that. So
applied.
IPv, so there was a
Right, oh yeah, so Windows systems with IPv6 turned on. You mean all of them?
all of
All
them.
of
There was
it.
a but there
All
was
of
a great episode on the packet protectors. Jennifer Manella, you know
Yeah,
Jennifer.
JJX.
Yeah,
JJX. She's awesome. She did a whole episode on this, and I don't remember who the guest she had, but go look up the podcast. It was a great listen. And he was like, basically, look, every Windows system has IPv6 enabled.
Yep.
Like
Yeah.
even if you like try to disable it,
It's enabled.
it's like still there. Like IPv6 is there no matter what.
And when
Unless
you
you,
try to
go to
disable
great lengths, you have to go to great lengths
yeah.
to get rid of IPv6.
It didn't
Like,
used to
it's
be that
there.
way, but it is now.
It is now.
But what's so amazing is when you go to disable IPv6 in Windows, you get shown like a screen that looks like it's from Windows 98. You know, like
Oh, dude, it's
like,
scary.
Like still, like
Even in
still the
Linux,
same
it's
old
like
code.
depending on your distribution, it's like you got to go here, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to modify your kernel, and then you got to reboot, and then you got to do it's.
Yep.
It's not just like a one-click thing. Like it's
Yeah.
it's a pain in the butt.
And it's been a little bit since I looked, but I was trying to verify that a service was running on like an Ubuntu installation. So I was like verifying that something was bound to a port, and it didn't show it bound to a port on IPv4, but it did on IPv6.
Yeah.
But it answered on IPv4.
Yeah,
Wait,
because there's
what?
like
Yeah.
you
No,
can
no, no,
tunnel
no,
you can
what?
tunnel
Yeah.
IPv4 over IPv6 and vice versa.
So
Is there direct port
Oh, that's
translation between
fucked up.
IPv4 and IPv6?
no.
I think
No?
but I
No,
think what they're saying, and I don't. It's been a long time since I've read this too, but IPv6 has specific like what like specific.
How can it be a
routines
long
for
time
that.
since you read it, Bill? IPv6 is brand new.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Right.
We're
Yeah,
old
yeah,
enough.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
old enough
Yeah.
where there have been points in our career when we're like, crap, I got to understand something about IPv6 because everyone's telling me it's gonna be the thing, and then we read up on it, we understand it,
It
and then
really hasn't happened to me yet.
and then it's not
Yeah.
applicable at all, and so we forget.
Yeah,
what
well,
we
so
learned.
Paul, I'm gonna argue that like we're old enough in our careers now that someone has said that IPv6 is going to be really, really important, and that I should probably read up on that and understand it, and then I never do, and then I still haven't done it, and I still haven't needed it.
Right.
Well, boys, today is the day because there's an exploit for IPv6.
You know,
Better
but
read
when
up.
I set up OpenSense, I'll call it OpenSense just for you, Larry, and
OPN.
because it's
I think
easier to
it's
say than
OPN.
OPN sense.
It's open sense.
It's
I think
OpenSense.
it's OPN.
So when I set up OpenSense, there was all these like default things about IPv6 on my interfaces in my firewall rules.
Sure.
And it had some kind of like default configuration. I think in the past, I've set up like separate rules and like monitored to like, do I need to allow it? Do I not need to allow it? And I'm sure there's folks who's gonna be like, oh, I need to be a guest in the show. I need to like explain this again.
Yes, please.
Totally, please.
Yeah.
Do it.
We would love
SecurityWeekly.com.
Yeah.
Security. Yeah.
please
/guests.
/guest. Love to have you on the show to explain.
Here's how much we know about IPv6. It uses colons for periods or something.
Ah, dude, so many colons. So many colons
and
instead
man,
of periods.
my Nmap
right?
scan takes so long.
So long.
Right. I'm
So
still waiting
long.
for that internet scan to finish.
I'm just trying to do my local subnet, man.
I know, like, and it was like 5 years ago. Someone told me I need to do that, and scan's still running. It's terrible.
Jeez, I'm wondering when my UDP is going to finish. Jesus,
Jesus Christ.
I'll be 70
you had
before
a
that.
I
quantum
tried to
computer.
scan my local subnet. It took a little while.
Yeah.
Oh, but let's talk about OpenSSH for a moment. There's a couple things in OpenSSH that have happened recently. A FreeBSD flaw had a remotely
You mean
exploitable.
feature?
What's that?
You mean feature? Go ahead.
Flaw is a feature. Yeah, flaw is a feature. I agree. So, but how do you differentiate between is it a malicious feature? Is that a flaw? Is that a? We're always debating terminology, Jeff.
It's only if the nation
No,
state
it's only
intern
Jeff
can
that makes us
exploit it.
debate terminology. We know what we're talking about.
So the title says a FreeBSD
I may
project
debate it
maintainers
too.
addressed a high severity flaw in OpenSSH that could allow remote code execution with elevated privileges
I like
via specially crafted packets.
I like how you put the emphasis on could.
Could. Well, this phrase could allow remote code execution is also present in pretty much every vulnerability write-up as well.
Yep.
Could.
It could, but only with
Could.
specially crafted packets.
Only with specially
Artisanal.
crafted packets.
Artisanal.
Like a fine IPA. It's an artisanal.
Oh, there's no such thing as a
IPA.
fine IPA. It's
Hey,
like
you
sucking.
take that back now. That's
like
fighting
sucking-
words right there. That's fighting words right
It
there.
is. It is.
Yeah.
It's like sucking on a pile of dirty pennies.
Hell yeah. That's great too. That's great too.
I mean, I don't
Ass
judge, Bill, but
pennies.
I mean, I don't.
Ass
I
pennies.
don't judge, Bill, but like, man, I'm not into sucking on ass pennies. Dirty pennies.
Oh, pennies. You said pennies. That's not what I heard.
Oh, you like
Ass
you,
penises? What?
yeah. It's all
Hey,
you, Bill. I'm not like I
so
said.
So there
we
was
don't.
flaw,
We do not
there was
judge.
flaws in OpenSSH, and you should look into those. That's really
Yeah, that's what you should do while you're
You
sucking on
should
your
do that.
pennies or
Yeah.
something. This is an awkward time to segue into something a little bit more
Oh
serious.
no, I was serious about that.
No.
He was serious about the ass pennies.
But there was
I want-
also HD Moore's research on what did he call
SSH.
that? SSH Run Zero made a tool to look for flaws in SSH. They have not fully processed because of all the stuff coming out of Hacker Summer Camp, but they released a tool that allow you to scan for certain configurations in SSHD that could be problematic, accompanying the actual vulnerability that FreeBSD was addressing. And basically, I ran both tools. Like I checked my FreeBSD systems. And you're like, Paul, why are you running FreeBSD systems? Because I run OpenSense and or pfSense on a number of my firewalls. So I had to check for that. Turns out they had remediated the issue in the versions that I'm running. But HD and company at Run Zero presented at, was it just DEF CON or was it Black Hat too?
For some reason, I think it was just DEF CON, but
I
I
think it was
might be
DEF CON.
wrong.
Yeah.
I think it was
But
DEF
what
CON.
what did they call that? They're doing they did a webinar today with more details. Also, if you were at
HD more details.
HD more details. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I saw it in a webcast. Never mind, I can't find it easily, and I should have added it to the show notes. But why isn't it on their website? They
But you
did
rely on automation for the show notes. So there's the problem.
we need to rely on AI,
Or ML. Hey,
something like that.
I've got two quickies. One is just mostly a shout out for Chris Quebeca. She's been on our show before, Sec Evangelism. She is involved in a lot of activism stuff, and she's been doing stuff in Venezuela. My article number 2, mostly just want to promote it. Go out and read it. You got to register to read the whole article, which I didn't, but it talks about things going on in Venezuela and perhaps Google Analytics being used to violate human rights. I don't know the details of the article. Just read it, register, spread it around. I promised her that I would put it out there, and I said I'll be on the podcast today, so I'll put it out there. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I think Larry had a story on this one too, is the fact that billions of people's information has been released in one fell
All of
swoop.
them. All of them.
All of them. We're all out there.
Bill. Oh,
What?
I don't know.
What?
You said, oh, what?
No, I said all of them. I
All
said
of them.
Oh,
all
okay.
of them. Yeah. Sorry, you can't understand my Midwestern accent.
That's right. Yeah, it's very.
My story number 1, and I think Larry's story number 8.
Every time you talk,
Yep.
I just hear Chief suck. That's what I hear.
Listen, the last 5 minutes, I don't understand why Paul and Larry are both trying to fight with me. Like, listen, I'll take you up. I'll take both of you on. Like, I'll start driving right now, and we're gonna do this. Sorry, Jeff.
Okay, let me set
you've
my
got-
alarm when you get here.
I know.
We've passed
you've
all
got-
the local privilege
wait,
escalation exploits,
yeah,
Bill,
I
so
know.
we're
I
good.
said
We're
come on.
good.
Yeah, because
Jeff-
believe it or
Jeff-
not, Bill, we do have guns here on Rhode Island.
I don't believe that. You guys don't even. You can't even do from last I understood, you guys couldn't even do tasers there.
No,
Like, you should-
or BB gun. Dude, don't get me started. We can't BB guns either.
Oh my god.
No, dude.
Well, so we got.
So my
We'll talk
question
after
is-
we'll talk after the show.
Yeah, yeah.
Why does data that's compromised by a site that's called National Public Data, why is that a thing?
Because it's all public now, Jeff.
Yeah, because it's all
But what-
public.
Privacy
wasn't
is
it
dead. It's all
before?
public.
So, Jeff, who is National Public Data?
I don't know. I thought
They're
I
When did, you
read
guys,
your article.
when did you guys give up on your Social Security being secret? Like
When I was
years ago.
12?
Bill, you should
Years
just read
ago.
yours out right here on the show right now.
All right, fair
And the
enough. Fair
CEO of
enough.
LifeLock.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, fuck
learned a
no.
lesson. Yeah.
Learn the lesson.
Mm.
Yeah. So, National Public Data, I think, is a credit agency. Hold on,
Yeah, I
it
think
was
you're
in my
right.
it was in my
I
article.
think I read that too, Larry.
It's in
A company that provides background checks. Per their website,
Jesus.
NPD obtains information from various public record databases, court records, state and national databases, and other repositories nationwide.
Okay, that makes more
And
sense.
so the interesting one about this one is that they didn't do a public disclosure of like, hey, we got hacked and we had a bunch of stuff disclosed. No, there was a court case that came out
Right.
that alleges that they got hacked, and now they have to talk about it.
So,
typically,
like,
companies self-report these breaches thanks to regulations and legislation that require to do so in a timely way. But this one appears that no notices and a primary plaintiff discovered the breach, received a notification from his identity theft protection service that a provider notifying that his data was compromised.
That's right. That's the key point here. No notice.
Yep.
Well, and
all
the
of
public data is like the criminal records and stuff like that, not the social security and address and all that kind of stuff.
So
That-
national
that's
public data,
implied.
meaning they go and dig into the national public data for background checks.
registries and stuff like that. Okay.
Yep. And the best part was like this just happened recently. Like this was in the news this week, and it was
Mhm.
actually one of the questions in the finals for Hacker Jeopardy last week at DEF CON.
Wow, cool. Says that the hacking group is called USDOD. Jeff, where do you work? Or where do you work?
I live in Maryland.
I wanna just quickly cover my story number 28. This is one of those like esoteric things I found. CVE 2024 38077. There's a proof of concept exploit, and they say
Okay, that was pretty quick.
they demonstrate how a single vulnerability was exploited to bypass all mitigations and achieve pre-authentication RCE on Windows Server 2025, which is considered to be the most secure Windows server, and it may seem fantastical in 2024, but it is fact. Despite Microsoft's various fortifications to Windows for decades, we didn't see pre-auth zero-click RCE in Windows for years. However, we can still exploit a single memory corruption vulnerability to complete the entire attack. And
Wow.
this is against RDP.
Wow.
And this is from Cloud Crow Sec. I picked it up from the Daily Dave mailing list. There's multiple CVEs that were disclosed in July 2024. 7 of them related to RDP-related vulnerabilities that we have reported and have been fixed by Microsoft. Complete with proof of code exploits in the whole thing. And I'm not sure why more people aren't talking about. Like, I didn't see this in the like regular like news feeds that we have. Again, this came from like some of my
how many
like weird kind of ways to find news to report on the show.
Question: how many people actually installed Windows Server 2025?
I was planning on doing it next year.
I mean, it's right in the name, right?
It's in the name.
Yeah.
And how many people have actually moved their stuff to cloud services that don't run Windows 2025? I honestly don't know.
Or maybe they do, right? Like,
right?
I don't
maybe.
know.
Yeah, maybe there's an AWS instance that you can deploy from the marketplace of Windows 2025.
The POC of the exploitation has more than 95% success rate on Windows Server 2025.
Why are all the images and half the code in Chinese?
In Chinese.
Since when does Windows come out with a version that's a year in the future?
Haven't you seen the memes about like
decades in the
how you
AI.
count? Like if you count in Microsoft, you go 95 to 98 to ME to XP
Vista.
to Vista.
No, it was
2000.
XP, then ME, then Vista.
To 2000.
Mm-hmm.
But 2000 was the it came from
last
the
stable
NT
version.
architecture which was a separate kernel
And related, I will have I'd have an argument with the Hacker Jeopardy folks. There was a question about a Windows operating system before Windows 95 that we used on our desktops at home, and they said Windows 3.1, and I dispute that it was Windows 3.1.1 for workgroups.
Yep.
Or Windows for workgroups. Yeah,
100%. So Windows Server
3.0,
2025.
Windows 2.0. Windows
yeah, I've
1.0.
argued with Lintile over answers. Don't.
So
bother.
as of today, as of the 14th of August, Windows Server 2025 is in preview. It is not released.
Oh, okay. Well, see, that's why they're ahead on the naming, Jeff.
Yeah,
it's in preview.
But when did 2012 server come out? When did 2016 come out? I don't think they've ever hit the year.
No.
Windows 95 came out in 97, didn't they? Didn't it?
Right, that's what I'm saying. I mean, usually they're years behind. So they might have it out now, but it's not going to be production ready until
Was Windows 95 the one where they're all dancing awkwardly on stage? That was 95, wasn't it?
I think it was.
No, that was your birthday party.
Or was that 98? Was that 98? Windows 98?
98. I think because Windows 95 had all the problems, and then 98 came out, and like we've
fixed
done it,
the
boys.
whole. Well, it legit did actually
Yeah.
fix a ton of really horrible things.
I love it.
And what was the first Windows version that converged their two architectures?
95.
No.
2000.
Wait, say that again, Jeff?
Because they had Windows 95 and they had Windows NT.
Yep.
Oh,
that was Windows
2000.
2000.
Windows 2000. Windows 2000 converged.
It was 2000 is when they converged.
That's right.
But 2000 came out in like 2004 or something like that.
Yeah, and what was the showing your age? What was the version that was supposed to come out after 2000 where they moved the entire file system to a database? And it was never realized.
Yeah, I remember that, Larry, but I don't like you.
Oh my God! Yeah.
No, that we covered a whole thing about
Like back in the day.
database file systems. Even after that, Microsoft's attempt. Microsoft made the first attempt.
Yep.
And then we covered another story.
And so
it's like buried in the archive somewhere. We did cover
Windows 2003 was the first one that was supposed to be database-based file system, but it wasn't ready yet. So they released it without it with the traditional file system.
Never did the
data. And they never
I don't
did
think
it.
To date, anyone ever successfully had a database-based file system that worked? We covered it.
I'm sure there's WinFS. I'm sure there's some 297-pound hacker in someone's basement that did it. But
hey, I take it offensive that.
I know you're not 297 pounds though.
All right, so that will wrap up the show. Thanks everyone for listening and watching to this edition of Paul's Security Weekly.
Woo!
Larry, take us out.
Over and Las Vegas Convention Center, DEF CON something out.